It's embarrassing how funny I think that idea is, Scott.
It really is.
Just a bunch of dead people. Dudes, like, it starts off with these Comanche warriors just sort of bellied over a hill, creeping up, doing their thing, although most likely coming in on horseback, but they roll in, and the second the war chief just gives the signal to start loosing arrows at these like adolescents out in the field, it just starts. And they go like they do you know how old timey movies they do fast forward, and they're just moving quickly. But think of how kind of abjectly terrifying and hilarious at the same time it would be if they did that killing, like just that brutal bone tomahawk style murder, but with that music playing and it kind of being jankily fast forwarded. Because if it had just dudes cutting guys' scalps off, sticking them on the scalp pole, hooting and hollering,
blood spurting everywhere, and you hear that in the background.
Absolutely, yeah. And then just riding off with adolescent prisoners, just tied to the backs of their horses, draped over the back of the horse like a saddlebag.
Hell yeah!
I think that would be more interesting to feast your eyes upon. I don't know about you, but
I'm into it.
Yeah, it could be fun. So it's just me and you tonight, pal.
Yeah.
Maj taking a little bit of a break for a little while, and we're back at just the duo, and we're going way into the Wayback Machine, 1956.
Holy shit!
And we're talking the Searchers. Yeah, this is an old one, Scott.
Yeah,
this is an old picture.
I love it.
So I don't know how you think or feel, but before we even get into that, let's just remind people this here is we're doing a cowboy block,
Hell yeah.
for lack of better terms. Cowboy's probably a misnomer, to be honest with you. I think cowboy is one of those catch-all terms that just, you say it and people kind of know what you're talking about.
Kind of Western.
Now, they might think you're right. They might think you're jumping up and down on stage playing pop country, with a headset on. What headset? You got like the headset, like the wireless headset mic, like Garth Brooks with a big Stetson on, and you're like, "In the thunder rolls."
He's got the big like,
"When the lightning crash," that horse shit.
Yeah, the pandering
instead,
country. You mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, I'm talking like the untamed West. 1800s, as it were, the United States of America. Not quite though. They sort of weren't quite past the 98th parallel, or whatever the fuck they call it. What's it called? The meridian, 98th parallel. The meridian there. And yeah, that's what we're talking about. So we're going to do quite a few movies, and we're going to go in this sort of chronology in terms of the film world. So 1956, this comes out. 20 years later, Outlaw Josie Wales comes out. We'll be doing that next time. I think we're going to do Young Guns and Tombstone and 310 to Yuma. I think that's the lineup. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So that'll be a ton of fun. And I'll tell you, man, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but I would like to hear what did you know about this movie before you went in? So I want to start there.
All right.
So that's the first thing I want you to talk about. The next thing I want you to talk about, and you can combine your answers.
Oh, okay.
I will accept credit if you combine your answers. What did you know of? Of course, you know who John Wayne is. What did you know of John Wayne? And what were you expecting? Because I have a lot of thoughts about this stuff. So please, just high level, camera pulled back, shoot your shot.
All right.
The Searchers.
The Searchers. You know what? Upon watching this, I'd realized that I'd watched this with my father maybe at 9 or 10. Because I remember...
No kidding.
I remember Futterman getting shot in the back and that being a problem back then. When those people are going to bushwhack them when they're sleeping next to the camp. I remember seeing that. And I was watching this. I was like, I've seen this before. I've definitely seen this before. I mean, everyone's seen the classic end of the movie. They've seen that still. But I never saw the movie all the way through, I think. And it brought me back to being 9 years old again. And I'm really into it. I really dug this movie a lot. As far as like John Wayne, he's a fucking man's man. And I mean, for him to have like the Native American name of Big Shoulders is very, very fitting because he was a burly dude. I've seen so many movies in my life with him in it. He's kind of like a man's man, kind of doesn't take any shit, You know,
Yeah, he's a different, born of a different time.
yeah.
When you're born in 1909 or some shit,
Holy
you're experiencing a very different life. Like this guy's, it's ironic that he plays a Confederate, a post-war Confederate, because his great grandfather, I guess it would have been, was a Union soldier,
Really? Okay.
like a guy he potentially could have talked to, or his great great grandfather. However, that lines up years wise. But yeah, he was a fucking Union soldier, like John Wayne's. You know, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Well, I also was
Like
thinking,
that.
I was thinking like him playing this Confederate at all was kind of weird to me initially in the beginning. I was like, he's a big pro-American dude, so him playing a Confederate soldier was a little off.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think and I dare not go into such a hot topic, but I think Union Confederacy, North South, American Civil War, War of Northern Aggression, depending on who you ask, or protecting the peculiar institution as it's known. What a nice euphemism for owning other men. But what the fuck? It's a peculiar, dear Agnes. We just crossed the Rio Grande, and I gotta tell you, I miss the confines of my peculiar institution where other men did my dirty work. I can't wait to kill the Yankees on account of the. But anyway, the yeah, it's fucked up. But yeah, owning other men is
I
crazy.
do quite miss my
So,
free labor.
It's a crazy idea, and I think so. Let's start there. Let's start by saying the non-controversial thing, which is, let's be real. The at least the power players in the South were, you know what they believed and what they were trying to hold on to. And you might even argue that a lot of the soldiers knew too, despite the fact that maybe 20% of them had the money to own a slave. You know, most of those guys who fought and died horribly in war could never have owned another man. And, I'm sure some fought because they thought that right should be something. I guess most of the evidence we have is letters from Confederate soldiers to others that have been, taken and read and looked at. And that's kind of how we examine it. But if you think about John Wayne's time, like, you could have interviewed these fucking people.
Yeah, they were still alive.
Like, John Wayne's father could have talked to his grandfather, who was that's an insane thing to think about. But yeah, him playing a Confederate, being pro-American, that was your statement. I think there's a lot of pro-American. There's a lot of people who say they're, and I'm going to say they are because I don't really know, but there's a lot of people who say they are pro-Americans who would tell you with little irony and with truth in their eyes that the South, the Confederacy specifically, or the South, there's something about Southern pride there, which exists apart from the idea of slavery. Now, I can't speak to that because I don't really know, but there are people who would say, no, I am pro-American, and I also am a proud Southerner, and I have a proud Southern heritage.
Yeah.
Most people yelling, I love America. A lot of people yelling, I love America. I mean, there's many different ways people say that. And there's plenty of people in the South who truly believe they're patriots in the South and believe in Southern heritage and maybe even fight for the United States government to this day. So I'm not here to cast that kind of castigation on people. Yeah. I can't. It's just so easy to look at some sort of Wikipedia article or read one professor's idea and just run with it and be like, this is what happened. This is everything. I don't know. I'm not. I wish I was more versed on the Civil War. I'm really not, to be completely frank. It's not a big stretch to go owning other people is evil and bad. And there was probably some, in their own way, heroic and probably good men who fought south of the Mason-Dixon. Like, I'm not somebody who believes like one family that lives 10 miles north of the Mason-Dixon and one family lives 10 miles south of it one's evil and one's fucking righteous and good. I just think that's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to cast that kind of dispersion on all these people.
It's not mutually exclusive to be, have Southern pride and be, a patriot.
Sure, exactly.
I mean, obviously, and you were giving them the South people who owned other people a very kind estimate. It was actually more like 1% to 2% of them were actually
was it?
had enough
Was it
money
that?
to own
I
another
didn't realize
person.
it was that
It's
many.
very expensive.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of it. I mean, this is goes hand in hand with the the Confederacy talking about his background in this movie, but it's
Right.
it was more so about the government telling them what to do,
Right.
and whether
Yeah, I don't know. I've listen. I've heard that spouted around.
yeah
I think that it's I think a lot of it was the government telling them that they could or couldn't own other men too. I think
Yeah.
that some people who would say,
yes.
I think it's a principle thing to say the government can say X, Y, or Z, but if you believe in any kind of self-sovereignty, then you have to understand that the institution or the idea of owning other people is it's not a stretch and it's not controversial, and nor is it heroic. And for me to go, slavery is abhorrent. Owning other people is an abhorrent idea.
Yeah.
And of course it has to be challenged. But I think also, let's not pretend that, like I just said, let's not pretend like these people in the North were like, oh my God, poor black people, let's go to war. No, I'm sure some were, and those people are heroes. And then there are others who are like, no, we're doing it for other reasons, or whatever those reasons were. Again, I don't know enough to go that deep into it, which is to just say, I guess my point is, there are people in the North at the time, and there were people in the South at the time who were good, bad, barbaric, or otherwise. And it's a constant reminder that I give people when I read history and I learn about history, which is the one thing so many different types of people and religions and skin colors and cultures the world over all have something in common. They all have their share of barbarians, and then they all have their share of good people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's just, you can't read history and not understand that if you're reading it with any objectivity whatsoever. But I think simple-minded people want to really distill things down into good and evil.
Yeah, two groups.
And it's like it's because they watched Star Wars, and I think these people who watch Star Wars think that there's a clear evil and a clear good all the time, and they're always acting in the name of good and doing good and righteous, and these guys are always acting in the name of bad and doing bad and evil. But the reality is, it's really a mix of ugly, messy people. But so one of the things I like to do is I was reading I was reading some articles about this movie, and some guy wrote this thing about how this is the worst movie ever, and he's got this terrible blog that's poorly written, and he called himself the film professor or some shit. And I wrote this huge response to him, like just trashing this movie. And then they wanted me to log in. I'm like, okay, never mind. But I saved that.
Fuck it, never mind.
I saved it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to log in because why am I going to argue with a guy who wrote this thing 12 years ago?
Yeah.
So, but it was just like, his whole thing was just this idea of saying, well, the films, he says, like, it's this thing people do is they speak in collective terms. They say, well, this film's view of whatever. And I go, well, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? Like, a film can't have a view.
No.
A film is a film. It spins around in a wheel. It doesn't think.
It can be
just
viewed.
spins.
It can be viewed, and you can see something in it, but it is not,
The director may think a particular thing, and
Yes.
maybe his thinking comes through in that, but there was also how many Native American people in this movie. So are you saying they held that view too? Because they're also in the movie. The movie doesn't have a view. It just is a movie. And then there's characters that you have to determine what you think or don't think of those characters. And we can only go off of that. Like, I don't like sweeping collective thinking. I just think it's messy, and it's not, I feel so underqualified to tell you, well, here's what they thought in the South.
Yeah.
Dude, what?
It's
as crazy as asking me, what did they think in the North? You're asking me to ask what they thought in 1840, whatever, in the North in America? I don't have a fucking clue. All I can do is read, and piece together what maybe was something they were thinking, or maybe if there was letters. I guess that's a big piece of evidence, was what people would say in letters when they would write letters, because that's what they did. They did a lot of letter writing,
But even then, if you write a letter,
so I keep it to the individuals.
Exactly.
Is my point.
But even if you write a letter, that doesn't have a sweeping scale of what people are thinking from the South or from the North.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting one little individual.
Right. You read
thing.
10 letters. What does that tell
Yeah,
you? How many fucking guys fought and died in the war?
Yeah.
You read 10 fucking letters?
That's not a sweeping idea of how everyone in the South or North thought. And as far as like, I have problems with reading articles of movies from this time that are written today, because it's complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit. You cannot take a 2024 view of a 1950s movie about 1868. You can't. It just doesn't work. You can't go, well, this.
Think of those numbers you just threw out.
Yeah.
How banana. And I think I was watching it with Maja, and she was like, the time from, I can't remember how you said it, the time between the movie and when this shit happened, and the time between the movie and today. Like, I know it's still, there's a vast, like 18, whatever. It's 200, it's 1870 to 19. It's less than 200 years ago.
Yeah.
When the movie comes out and when the events of the movie are supposedly taking place from a historical context. And we're almost 100 years away from that, which is insane.
Yeah. Like it was 1868 when this movie was supposed to take place. It came out in 56, you said? So I mean, obviously those are generations. That's crazy when you think about it. I mean,
the time between the events of the movie and the time between the movie and us that's crazy. That's that close together.
Yep. Was it 160 years, something like that? Close to that?
That's so insane.
So you can't go, well, there's things in this movie that are problematic. Well, no shit by today's
I want to talk
standard.
about those things. Yeah. And we got to talk about them as it relates to the characters, because that's what we're not watching a historical documentation.
No, this is
watching a movie.
This is a story,
right?
This is a story with loosely based on history, but not an actual historical film.
No, I think this is. I know there's a book, but I think this probably has to do with like the. What the hell's her name? I just wrote it down. I took some notes on this as well. But The Empire of the Summer Moon, you know that book?
No.
By S.C. Gwynn. Dude, that book is all about the Comanche. Rise and fall of the Comanche, basically. And Cynthia Ann Parker, who got taken when she was, I guess, 9.
Yes, I read something about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that idea is present in this movie. But so yeah, there's not a historical event by any stretch. It's just set in a historical time. That's all it is. But we're sort of, batting around the ideas of I guess kind of blathering about the Civil War. I think I don't. It's good that the North won. Nobody's gonna argue with you.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna argue with you that
fish in a barrel.
But I think it's just so easy. It's the same thing. It's kind of like saying, was every German soldier evil? That's just in movies. Yes, they all are. Oh, what do we have here? Kill them all. But the reality is, was that really the case? Were they all just evil men, or were they just men who were like, oh, I have to go to this war now because I live in this country and I don't really follow, I don't know about the political situation and blah, blah, blah. And there's so many people who say things like, my favorite thing that people do when they talk about either Union soldiers or Confederate soldiers, especially, they say things like, well, they should have just refused to go. They should have refused to go.
Yeah. Everyone wants to go to prison.
Okay. A Confederate, a guy who lives in the South should have refused to go to war and be hanged?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fucking shitty, ugly, nasty business. And it sucks. But the whole point of this complete off-topic situation, I guess it's halfway on topic, is this idea of Ethan Edwards, this guy, he's coming home in the opening of this movie. He's coming home from the fucking war.
3 years after the war. 3 years. So he doesn't come home right away.
Yes. He doesn't come home right away. And before we, as we talk about that, I just want to talk about, first of all, is it something, what's the fucking guy's name? John Ford's the director.
Yes.
That opening shot of Martha opening the door, the camera being inside the house, and the camera moves out onto the porch, and we just see the great expanse of the American West. Fucking mesas,
beautiful.
Just the crabgrass. It is this movie. I should probably say this is, I think it's phenomenal. I'm so impressed by this movie. I won't shut up about it. You can ask my wife. I'm like, this movie is fucking phenomenal. I think it's amazing. And I had zero expectations for that coming in. I was expecting super cheesy, silly horse shit from the 50s. And, ooh, ah, ooh. But it's a dark fucking movie for the time. A time where they wouldn't never, ever say certain things in the movie. You know, they wouldn't say things like, oh, they were raped and butchered. They wouldn't even say it. Like, just to say it. You're talking about a show where Ricky, where Desi Arnaz and Lucy were in separate beds in a comedy, even though they were fucking married. Like, you got to remember the time we're in and the things they would say or not say or show or not show in the movies. There was a certain decorum that if they watched movies of today, they would be like, this is heinous.
Yeah, they would be completely freaking out with how explicit our movies are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this guy Ethan shows up in this beautiful shot, by the way, him kind of just rolling into town. And yeah, he is a post-war Confederate who is home after the war, a war in which they were defeated.
Yes.
And this is going to be a theme we continue, I think, in the Outlaw Josie Wales, because it's going to be the second movie we cover 20 years later, by the way, 1976, where we go, holy shit, he plays a Confederate soldier in the Outlaw Josie Wales. An ex-Confederate soldier, same deal. Did you know that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that one. I've seen the Outlaw Josie Wales. I've seen that one. I'm ready for that one too.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's what a crazy idea. So this guy comes home, and it's funny because I think that's an immediate struggle for people who don't know a ton about history or think too much about it. If they think too much about it in black and white terms, they might just be like, okay, this guy's evil immediately, you know. And it's kind of fucking, I don't know how I feel about that, but and maybe that's not a sentiment people have, and maybe I'm chasing ghosts with my own fucking bullshit, but that's a weird thing to think about. But anyway, he comes home from this war. I'm sorry.
I was just to say it's just very reductive because we are people and we all have good and bad. But continue.
Right. So he comes home from this war, and he is immediately. Do you get a sense between him and Martha that something's going on?
Yes, I think he was in love with Martha. There's little things. Yep. He gives her a kiss. She goes to grab grab something off the fireplace, and he grabs it for her and hands it to her so gently, like someone who has you're hiding the fact that you love this person, that you're in love with her. I think he's in love with her, and he kind of just he seems to have disdain for his brother.
Yes. Some kind of something between him and his brother, something icy going on there. And it's funny because he left right before Debbie would have been born, right? So there's a lot of speculation that he could potentially be Debbie's father.
Yeah.
If in fact Martha and Ethan had an affair. And I kind of like that. I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah. There's some layering there. I mean, if there's some scenes in it where right when they all meet and they're inside the house, Martha looks at him like someone who's been longing for his return. Like she's
Indeed.
trying to hide the fact that she's into him and that she's happy he's home, because obviously her husband is 3 feet away. But I think there's something there, which is something I love that it's layered. I love that it's not this movie you think it's going to be from the mid 50s, that it's just going to be very like, hold it, ha, ha, ha. But it's actually got layers to it, which I like.
Me too. Yeah, I did too. You know, sometimes you got to try to understand. There's a couple things that might feel a bit hokey, but for the most part, I don't know, man. I really am taken in, and I'm compelled, and I want to watch. And again, I'm on record as saying I don't really give too much of a shit about John Wayne, because when somebody is your parents somebody, you go, I want my own somebody.
Yeah, you naturally balk against
They're
it.
like John Wayne and the Searchers, and I'm like, well, what about Val Kilmer and Tombstone? You know, like we all have our own shit. And someday somebody will be going, and they probably already are because time marches on, because even Tombstone's ancient at this point. People go, well, fuck Val Kilmer. What about this guy in this 2022 Western? So that's just the way it goes. But I have I have now grown. I have a pretty healthy respect for John Wayne as an actor after watching this movie.
Yeah.
And it's made me interested in seeing maybe some more things he does. Now, one thing I will tell you is that John Wayne, from what I understand, is usually, when we talked about Star Wars and these guys are the good guys and these guys are the bad guys, I'm going to bring it full circle to John Wayne. Because usually in John Wayne movies, he's the Rebel Alliance. And it's very clear and he's the good guy and everybody else is the bad guy. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that this movie portrays him that way. And it's funny because that review that was just like, he starts by saying, I don't like John Wayne, never liked John Wayne, and blah, blah, blah. And why does the movie want me to think it's funny because sounded like he was really battling his own emotions about this. He's like,
he's into
this movie, and I'm serious. He was like, why does this movie's trying to paint him as some hero? And I'm like, is it?
Did we watch the same movie?
I don't think it is. I'm like, dude, we watched a different movie. Yeah. And what I like about this movie is it takes a individual who is a post-war Confederate, 1800s in America. First of all, you can't even imagine what that's like. You have no fucking idea.
No frame of reference.
How that would be to live that way. No frame of reference, especially, and I'm not talking on the East. I'm not talking about a lot of the native tribes died like to fucking disease, let alone bad treaties and, some war as well. But the East Coast Indians were already like in bad straits from all of the disease. The West, that was not the case. And these guys are out there on that fucking frontier.
Yeah. Northwest Texas this takes place in. And around this time,
the High Plains or the Great Plains, I should say.
Yeah.
Just on the cusp of the Great Plains.
And it was during the time of the Homestead Act, which was basically when America was supposed to spread from the Union or the Atlantic to the Pacific. And so they gave land away in droves to anyone who had the sand to go out and get it. And
in now California, but California was already pretty settled. It's funny. It's right up, like I said, to that 98th meridian, I guess they call it, right where it goes from like rainy to like dry in the middle of the country, and then it's just vast nothing, and then it's California,
and it's
which was pretty settled.
Still kind of like that overall. I've driven up out there, and once you get out there, you can understand why it was. The reason why California was settled was because people could take steamboats. They had to go all the way around the Horn of South America, but they could go there. And a lot of the Asian immigrants landed in San Francisco. So you had settled.
Well, you're talking about way after the fact. Before then, it was the Spaniards.
Yeah, the Spaniards
were
first.
Pushing north up through Mexico.
But in the 1860s, the Asians came as well, too. So it was like hit or miss. But with a lot of that, there was no way to get across these Great Plains. And there was no, and people were living there. I mean, straight up, Native American groups by the thousands were living in this area, and they didn't take kindly to people intruding on their property, which, I mean, obviously any of us would be the same way.
Sure.
And so it was very dangerous. The Homestead Act kind of they did it to kind of make the Americans spread west, but at the detriment to the Native Americans. But that's one of the reasons why these people had these little tiny homes out in the middle of nowhere. Like in this movie, they seem like they're pretty far away from any kind of civilization, which is, it does a really good job of building that isolation right away.
Yeah, for sure. I think my cat's all over the fucking thing right now. And the Homestead Act, there's another thing that I didn't really know was the thing, which was, so when Mexico owned Texas. So this source from S.G. Gwynn, who wrote Empire of the Summer Moon. I guess what happened is that they gave thousands and thousands and thousands of acres to these American people who were coming west. And they said, yeah, take it. They didn't tell them about the Comanche. So the supposition is that they just created a buffer for themselves against the Comanche.
Yeah.
That's fucking dark.
It's dark.
Dude.
They were
So the Mexican dudes were like, take the land, bro. And then the Comanche were like, we're gonna fuck these people up. So it's they didn't know, like, and I think that is a crazy idea. You know, one of the things that S.C. Gwynn said in that book, which is interesting, is he said, you know, when Spain would move north and they would fight, you know, they would fight in the Indians all the time. When they would move north, the military would go first, and then the colonists were, you know, sort of close behind. And they said so much of that was cultural and whatever denomination of Catholicism they were sort of practicing at the time. Whereas the people who were coming west were like these Calvinists, stubborn, righteous, like, we're just going to go ahead of everybody and just go. And these fucking people, like you're seeing in this movie, they just went out there and lived, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean,
with now, here's a crazy stat. There was only like 40,000 people in Texas at the time.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
40,000. That's one stadium. That's one Red Sox stadium full of people across the entire state of Texas. That's nothing.
The second biggest state in America, and it's
fucking massive. It's bigger than countries.
Yeah.
It's so big. These people, and then these people all start going out there, and there's no cities, there's no institutions. So there's no way to protect them. So that's I think that's one of the most romanticized and interesting things about this moving west was, we're going to protect ourselves. We're going to make our own food. We're going to make our own shit. We're going to have to travel to these outposts to trade. There was no like, call the police. The Comanche are here. Yeah. It's like, you're going to die.
You're dead.
You're sorry.
You're dead.
You're going to be killed and tortured to death and raped to death and butchered. You're dead. Sorry. You shouldn't have come out this far. And so that's just a crazy way to live. We can't even fucking fathom that. You fucking wait 2 extra minutes to get your quarter pounder with cheese and you're fucking ready to kill. You have no fucking idea what it's like to live like this. Like, so we're sitting here typing on our MacBook Pros. These fucking people. I'm like, you have no fucking clue, and neither do I. But think about how these fuckers live.
But at least
that's a crazy idea.
But at least you're actually thinking about it. You're not just going, it must have been easy. No, you didn't have any supplies.
Yeah, okay.
You know, at least you have the presence of mind to go, I can't imagine it, but it's got to be fucking hell. They had to be 100 times tougher than I ever will be to carve out an existence with no structure of society around you. We take for granted the fact that if, hey, you know, I get in an altercation with my neighbor, I can call the cops and they'll mediate. No, you got an altercation with your neighbor.
I don't call the police.
I don't call the cops either. But if you...
No offense to my police friends listening.
No, I just don't involve things I don't need to involve. But if you had an altercation with your neighbor, you had to shoot him. You know what I mean? You had to take care of it yourself. They call it the Wild West for a reason. And one of the things I love about this time frame is that we have how many Westerns were made? I don't know, 5,000, something like that, movies about the West.
I don't know.
Some kind of crazy number. But do you know how long the Wild West actually lasted? About 25 years.
Yeah, about 30 years.
Yeah. And it was so quick. The modernity caught up real fast. Once they figured out how to get the trains to connect, it was over. It was just a ticking time bomb of people moving west and you know, moving Native Americans to reservations so that people could have the proper land they wanted and things of that sort. It's a wild time. And I always thought of like the movie that makes me think of this kind of way of life is the Last of the Mohicans, when they're in New England and they're carving out the homestead. They're moving slowly west from you know, Boston and upstate New York.
And that really predates this time by maybe, I mean, that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. 1700. It's like 100 years.
It's 100
before.
years. About the 1760s was when that was happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the other thing too is that when you say Wild West, that's like when people think outlaws and cowboys, I think that's what they think, is that like Jesse James, William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid, Wild Bill Hickok. That was the short 30-year time.
Yeah.
But just here's a crazy statistic. Again, S.E. Gwynn's book, Empire of the Summer Moon, is what I'm referencing. He said that the war against the Comanche was 40 fucking years.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the longest war America has ever been in. If that's a great trick question. Although I think somebody said the Korean War never technically ended.
Yeah, but that's
Anyway,
technically though. That's not
right. But fighting the Comanche for 40 fucking years, dude. That's no joke. And it's funny. I think you think about these lifestyles, and I think people thought that the government went out there, murdered a bunch of Indians, and then just rolled out the red carpet for a colonist to live. That's not how it went down.
Not at all. A lot
of these people went out way ahead of that and just got fucking butchered.
Yep.
You know, thinking like, oh, we can live out here, cool, and you know, it's don't get it twisted. The probably the biggest evil, and I'm going to be I feel perfectly good about myself saying this. The biggest evil in all this time period was probably the U.S. government. I know you guys think that's a stretch for Dean to say, but
get out of here.
Let's be real. 300 plus broken treaties with Native peoples. I mean, it goes on. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So when you're sitting in your beds at night, ready to sprint to the polls to help the government maintain its power, just remember it's the same fucking government that did all this other shit and every other thing for the rest of the fucking time too. But I digress. Back to the insanity of living like this. Like, you're just in a house in the middle of fucking nowhere. And that's insane. And then people are like, oh, somebody came and opened and let Lars's cattle go. What are we going to do? Well, there's a bunch of us here because we heard about it. Let's all get on our horses and get together and posse up, as it were.
Yeah.
Right? I know the word posse sends shivers down a lot of people's spines, but that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's a group of dudes armed on horses, and they're going to go try to figure out who let this guy's cattle out. What happened to these cattle? Why?
And that's the only kind of force they had. The only kind of like law, I guess, was their own. And you know, it's like a levy. They would call it a levy. Okay, something's happened. Someone's homestead's been leveled. We got to go figure it out. We got to find out what's going on. They weren't detectives or calling the state police or you know, anything like that. It was just regular guys who were responsible for other people, which is one of my we talked about previously in a podcast, was, you know, having the kind of responsibility that's really important. And you were responsible for your family, but not only your family, but everyone around you that were also homesteaders out in the middle of nowhere, carving your life out of the wilderness. I mean, the balls on these people, like, I can't get over it. I can't get over it.
And the audacity.
Yeah, kind of like, this is my land now.
Balls audacity. And let's throw righteousness in there sometimes too, you know. But I think one thing to remember is watching this and thinking about this, and I like modernity as well as anybody does. I often I try not to. I've read a little bit of history in my time, so I certainly don't romanticize the past, right? You learn about what the Vikings did to the Anglo-Saxons, and you go, okay, that's pretty wild. But you know, one thing that I think is super interesting about this is that these people were so tight knit, and even though I'm a bit reclusive, I really like that idea. I like when's the last time you said more than 4 words to the guy who lives 40 feet from you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
back then it was like, hey, boss, they need help over on the farm. They'd walk over and say, hey, can you help me catch my cow? I'm like, oh, shaking hands and come over for tea, and people walk into their house in the beginning of this movie. It's such an indication as to the way it was. This guy rolls in by all their names I used to know. The Reverend Captain Sam Johnston, right? He rolls into their house with these Texas Rangers, Charlie and Nesby and Mose Harper and everybody else, and it's just like, yeah, sit down, pass me the sugar, let's eat. Now, this would make me probably lose my mind. I just said, get the fuck out of my house, probably, because I'm like that. But there's something about this that I actually do like. Well, you know, my grandmother's house was like this where I grew up. It was like kids in and out all the time. It was just, you know, which probably drove her crazy, to be frank. But just that idea of that we are together, we're tight knit because we have to be. Because if not, we're all fucking dead out here. It's like, this is high stakes living.
It's that the adage, it takes a village, and they would work together. And like, I'm pretty good with that. Even though I can kind of be a recluse like you, all my neighbors, they do come over and knock on the door and be like, hi, is there any chance you can help me? And I'm like, absolutely.
Mhm.
But it's a trade off.
And then and then she goes, these clothes are so fucking itchy.
And you hear boom, down, down.
Is that what you mean? Can you, the way you had your neighbor's voice, can you help me? Like, what? Change your tires?
Well,
What are you talking about?
she's like 85, so I mean, I'm not into that. But you know,
all right.
hey, you never know. But
Oh, that's cute. So you helped the old lady. I like.
yeah, I have a couple like that. As my neighborhood has aged, they remember me as a young boy, and they've always been good to me, so I'm good to them. One lady still cooks me food whenever she cooks food. Like she'll be like, "Here you go," and I'm like, "Thank you." But it's I like that mentality. I like that because I think it's how we were supposed to be, and I think the modern times has ruined that for us. I think we're supposed to look at our neighbor as someone like you wave to and you stop. You know, you run into them and you actually stop and say hello and shoot the shit for a little bit and have a conversation. Now you barely even. I mean, I have neighbors that live in my neighborhood that won't even wave to me when I walk by them. You know, like
that's it. And it's also a distinctly American thing too. You know, like so many countries are different. You know, I think your more Latin based cultures are more like that. Like more like, hey, what's up? Fucking whole party on the block, everybody goes. And then like if you talk to Maja, she'll be like, just eye contact with another Finnish person is sometimes a bridge too far. You know, like, it's just a different culture. You know, it's just a cultural thing. And maybe that's fear that they're looking at a Russian spy who's trying to take over the country. I don't fucking know. But maybe, you know, I don't fucking know.
Well, yeah.
But out in the American West, it was like, well, you know, Pa fucking Pickens' farm, we got to fucking go down there and help him with the cows, and because you know it's going to be winter and we're probably just going to die out here. There's no ambulance. There's no what the fuck are we doing? But there's something greatly attractive to that for me as a person. That idea, and I'm fortunate because I have my brother, you know, a house away. 2 houses from that, I have my sister, and a house from that, I have my father. So we kind of have our own little, you know, Western compound, just like my dad probably dreamed it up when he was a kid.
Hell yeah.
Born in the 50s, you know, watching movies like this and shit. But yeah, this is just that whole introduction. It's just, wow, what a different thing. They just all storm in and eating and drinking and sipping the tea and leaving the mess for Martha to clean up. It's just like
the hospitality.
And then they're off. They got to go. They all got to get the fucking cow rustlers. But maybe it's not cow rustlers. Maybe it's something else.
But that's why they would get posse up and go check it out to make sure, because they're looking out for their neighbor, but they're also looking out for themselves, because what happens to your neighbor can definitely happen to you out there because there is no support structure.
Mm-hmm. And there's just no, if you were out there and Comanche attacked you and killed a guy, or if a guy strayed too far and got picked off by Comanche, okay, that's it. There's no, you can call it a crime. You can call it whatever you want. You want to get into the morality of what that means. You want to get philosophical about it. Go ahead and get philosophical. But the reality is just, you're not going to arrest a fucking Comanche for that. You're going to fight a tribe. There's no, like, just think about that. One of these guys kills one of the other guys. Suddenly they arrest him. They take him down to whatever, you know, the closest thing they have to some sort of town or city. And that's where the law takes place, you'd hope. Unless they just fucking murder him. But
yeah, they didn't think that way about Native Americans.
No, it was specifically the Comanche. You know, I think it's common to just assume that, you know, that it was always an adversarial relationship. I think it was a lot of times, especially where the U.S. government was concerned. But I think there were plenty of settlers. There's plenty of instances of settlers getting along with these people taking care of them, you know, helping them survive fucking winters and shit. And that's just fascinating. And then it just gets uglier the longer it goes on. The more people keep coming over.
Yeah. They just kept,
and that's the other thing too. Like,
encroach their land.
These people that you're seeing in this movie, they're born here. They're not like, they didn't come over on the fucking Mayflower, you know? They're not 200 years old. These people are born in America. So they're born hearing about, oh, these crazy people out here fucking scalp us and kill us and all this shit. Like, they're born out here. They didn't come on a boat. The people you're seeing in this movie, the characters I'm saying, they're Americans. They're born in America. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think too, is like, how what's the, how amicable would you be if someone just kept creeping in on your land?
Not amicable at all.
Exactly. So I mean,
Absolutely not.
when I read books when I was younger, they called the Comanche bloodthirsty and very, very aggressive, very, very good horse people. Like they were very good with their
The best.
yeah, their equestrian skills were top notch. But you know, upon learning things as I got older, not saying what some of their raids were justified, but also you push people too far, whether they're Comanche or Sioux or even some, you know, Irish or Italian immigrants, things like that. Like people have a limit. People have a limit of how much stuff they'll take. And to this, it's not even just that they were a different warring tribe because they were used to that. The Comanche were used to that. This was a whole nother race of people that didn't have anything in common with you. And they just kept encroaching on your land and taking your things. And so that's why they were warlike. But they weren't completely warlike. That's one of the things I want to get across is that they were good at it for sure.
I have a lot to say about this too, and we might have some differences of opinion here, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no one is, you know, we can't judge them by even their standards of morality in 1868 because we didn't live their lives. And
when you say them, you mean the Comanche?
The Comanche, yes. The Comanche, we couldn't judge them because we didn't know their way of life. We didn't have any interest of learning their way of life. And as a society, I mean, as the government, they didn't care about any of that. They wanted expansion to the west, and these people were in the way. And they fought back. They fought admirably. It was a very long war, like you said, and there was give and take in both sides. It was very interesting to see that the military struggled with people that they considered inferior when they weren't inferior by any standards. They may have been inferior because they didn't have the newest guns or the newest ammunition or the newest supplies, but they did a lot with what they had. And it's, you know, it's hard to gauge that by today's standards, especially because we look back with everything with, you know, they were bad people or they were good people based on what we've learned. And no, they were both good and bad, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as the Comanche go, now again, there's tons and tons of Indian tribes. My knowledge of American Indians is paltry at best. So take most of this with a grain of salt. And most of this was crammed for the night of exam, if you catch my drift. One of the things I've been interested in doing, and when I say interested, I mean trying to find sources that I think, you know, lack an agenda. I just want historical accounts of things. I don't want people to bring their fucking modern politics to the history of the time. I just want to know, like, what the fuck happened and what we could infer from history. So a lot of what I'm going to tell you is about a book I didn't even finish. I listened to probably 7 chapters of it today. So this is very, very skim surface sort of fly-by-night horseshit. So I want to start by telling you that. So the book I mentioned, The Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynn, is super interesting because a lot of what you're saying sort of matches up to what he's saying. But there is a couple of differences, and that is the Comanche were very much warlike way before American settlers came. And I don't know if you knew that,
yes.
but in that the Apache can speak to, and every other every other Great Plain tribe can speak to, because when the Comanche got horses, which they got from the Spanish, they mastered horse. When the author of this book was on Joe Rogan, when Joe asked him why, he said nobody really knows why they got so good at it, because plenty of Plains Indians had horses and would use horses. They'd ride them and everything. But the master of the horse by the Comanche is still one of those, there's competing ideas about it today. Nobody quite really understands how did they take to it so well. What sort of fucking divine power did they have with mastering breeding and breaking and saddling and riding and fighting from horseback and laying along their horses and shooting arrows and shooting rifles later. And their ability to, when they did that, they completely started to control the food supply, which of course was buffalo. and they were very much nomadic. The Comanche, we're talking about Comanche like they had these houses and this is where they just stayed, and that the government just rolled them over, but not really. They were very nomadic. They moved around a lot.
All the tribe.
And they were a literal warring, raiding culture. Their entire culture was built around that idea. They didn't farm. They didn't have agriculture. There's very little art to speak of and very little music to speak of, unlike a lot of the other Native American tribes. They were, by the time the Americans came, and now remember, they don't, this was over time, they dealt with the Spanish, but fighting amongst themselves, amongst the Comanche fighting the other tribes, they got so competent at war that they became, I guess in S.C. Gwynn's word, he said, they sort of became this slimmed down American Indian culture, unlike all the other Indian cultures you may experience at the time, to where they were almost Spartan.
Yeah.
Like the Comanche are
race.
Spartans as our Spartans are to the Greeks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
A very specific subset of this type of culture. And I thought that was so fucking cool. And one of the most interesting things about this is that these people who came from the Wests, they were trying to think about this, Scott. These Americans are trying to get away from civilization. They're trying to get a piece of land. They're trying to embark upon this great American spirit. They're trying to become free people outside of the confines of the institutions of America at the time, or England, outside of the institutions of the church. Not saying they were going to become, atheists or hedonists, no, but just free to be out here in the West, to go to these places, to feel like they could do it, to go out here. Like you said, takes a lot of fucking balls to go out and do this stuff. And by the time they ran into the Comanche were just a very different group. And not just that, but what the American settlers who pushed west were looking for, in some ways, deeply ironic, the Comanche already had. And the Comanche were embarked upon a life that really sounds appealing to me outside of the torture and mutilation of children and women.
Come on.
Is this idea of ultimate freedom. There was nobody, the author of the book said there was probably nobody more free than like a 15-year-old Comanche boy whose life was swimming, playing, learning to hunting until they could become a fucking raider, And
awesome.
It just running around, fucking just live. You're out there, you're fed, you're cared for. There's no institutions in the Comanche. There's no, he described them as having this flat hierarchy. There's a war chief, and then everyone's kind of equal, and you do what you want. And then if there was a war chief, say Maj is the war chief. Let's just pretend Maj is the war chief, and you're like, yeah, but I want to go raid. Cool. You grab me and 5 other guys, and we're like, we're gonna go raid. That's what we go do.
That's cool.
Now,
I like that.
Obviously, the appeal of the Comanche lifestyle is sort of creates a division in me, because I think theft and raiding and robbery and murder is taking the rights of other people is an abhorrent practice. And the Comanche were doing it long before they ever saw a white face. Yeah. And that just needs to be made clear.
Yeah, it's not, they didn't turn that way because white settlers came in. They were warring way before. Right. As their counterparts would tell you.
Yes. as the Navajo and the Apache would tell you. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to say, I'm not here to judge them either. For the same reason I'm not judging the people who moved west, I'm certainly not judging the Comanche who did what they did, because there's a lot of bloodshed. No group is free of the bloodshed of, there's no exclusively noble culture. There's probably some, but very few, I can assure you. And boy, they were no fucking joke. And you see it when you read about them and everything else. So yeah, think about that lifestyle for just a minute. That's insane.
Well, yeah,
they got these horses, they mastered the horses, then they controlled the buffalo because they could hunt them. And at their peak, dude, remember how we said there's about 40,000 people in all of Texas?
Yeah.
I think they were saying there was only like 40 to 50,000 Comanche in that entire territory. Think of how big that is. 40,000. You're never going to find them if you don't want to. And then they had like maybe 5,000-6,000 were true warriors. That's nuts, dude.
Yeah, it's like I read something where they had compared them to the early Mongolian Empire before they had become.
That sounds about right.
Before they had become ruling by Genghis Khan, where they were still different groups and they had different hierarchies, and they had mastered the horse. They had nomadic lifestyle. They followed herds, and they became very effective with their weaponry. One of the things that the Comanche were known for was being able to. They didn't have saddles. A lot of them initially. I mean, I'm sure they got saddles. That they were such a good rider.
They did eventually.
Bareback on a horse, but one of the things they would do is they would lean over and shoot from the side, like almost parallel with the ground.
Lay along the horse.
Yeah.
Lay along the horse. Yeah,
and they would, how could you, they make their target very small. They if you hit them, you probably hit the horse first. It's just, think about like how many years it took them to get that proficient and then become a steamroller for all of the Great Plains area.
No shit.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's and the fact that they're a nomadic culture, I think sometimes challenges the notion that they felt like a settler was taking their land. I think they're just like, here's an easy target. Let's take all their shit and then go back to being nomadic. I don't want to speak for Southerners, Northerners, and I certainly don't want to speak for Comanches from the 1850s. I couldn't tell you what they thought or felt. And now I know that there are a lot of interviews. Strangely enough, there's a lot of interviews with Comanche from like the 20s, which is so interesting. There's a lot of ex-Comanche people who surrendered. That's
crazy. That's crazy.
There's a lot. There's a lot of that stuff out there. But some of it was just like, these people are easy targets, because it's funny. One of the things that comes up in this movie a lot is Ethan in his racist sort of viewpoints. And I definitely want to talk about that because I think it's important. But I think like what's funny about that is I'm like, I kind of like the Comanche even more than I originally did, despite their barbarism, because I like the idea that they're not, they kind of just, if you weren't Comanche, you were a target. That's the way it was. It wasn't like they were like extra torture for the whites. They're like, no. We torture everybody the same, so sorry. You're like, you're like, yeah, they just kind of do it to everybody. Who cares? But before we get to Ethan and his racist thinking, or in behavior, to be frank, one last thing I'll say about the Comanche, because we spent a lot of time on it, but the rules, there was these sort of unwritten rules for these Plains Indians, and that was if there was fighting between them, which there was a lot of, and I know there's a lot of revisionist history that says no, a lot of the fighting was very sparse between the tribes, and the fighting between tribes got more intense with the arrival of whites. That's a very fun thing to say, but it certainly wasn't the case with the Comanche.
Definitely not true,
because the rules of the Plain Indians were pretty simple at the time. I guess it was, if you're an adult male and you weren't killed during the battle, you were probably going to be tortured to death.
Yeah.
If you were a baby, you were killed. Which is crazy because they're nomadic and they can't just deal with a baby. Like try riding a horse with a stupid baby on your saddle. Like how annoying would that be? You're trying to fucking sneak up on these dumb white people and the baby's crying. You're like, strangle that thing. They strangled a ton of babies, tons. Not huge baby people. If you had babies when they took you out, the babies were probably killed.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a crazy story from the Parker woman who was captured by them, which states that they strangled the baby of 7 weeks old, and then it didn't die. And then they're like, what the fuck? So they grabbed it, dragged it over, and just strangled it in front of her. Like crazy shit like that, dude. That's no joke. If you were a teenage female, probably going to be killed, raped, turned into a slave, probably. But if you were between usually like 7 to 12, they might adopt you into the tribe.
Take you in.
They might take you in because they had to replenish their ranks somehow.
Right. Well,
they're always on the run.
Well, we're smashing babies' heads against rocks and killing anyone a little older. So we got to have something. We got to fill the roster some way.
My point about Comanche in probably not being racist But it was because they did that to everybody.
Yes.
It wasn't just, they didn't just do it to white people. They did that to everybody.
They've been doing it.
It was just
a long
kind of the rules of the land at the time. That was just how it was done. And there was a reason the Comanche struck fear into, and there are some people who trade, like the Mexican Comancheros. They traded with them, they knew they had to do some trading. But yeah, pretty intense, man. But yeah, the Sioux, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, they were all good on the horse, but the Comanche were like, listen, let me tell you what's going on with horses. And I just think that that's a crazy, just a crazy idea. But Ethan in his racist thinking.
Dude, I straight up laugh when he's like, Martin, you look like kind of a half-breed, eh, buddy? He's like,
half-breed. Yes, that's what he says. So I want to talk about it because I think if you watch, like you said, watching this movie with modern eyes, you're going to be like, how do I root for this guy? But you got to remember a couple of things about this movie, and that's Ethan is a guy whose parents were killed by Comanche. Then his brother was killed by Comanche. Then Martha was killed by Comanche. Then his nephew, I can't remember the boy's name he gives the saber to, he was killed by Comanche. Then Debbie, and is it Lucy?
Yeah, Lucy.
I think it's Lucy. Debbie and Lucy are abducted, presumably killed, or worse, according to them, which they hint at as rape, by Comanche. So if he says something like, if he says something like half-breed, are we going to think he's the worst person on the planet?
It goes by your experiences, and prejudice was just how it was in 1868.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't. It's so hard to like. Not that I'm worried about pissing anyone off, but it's so hard to like traverse properly because you're gonna make someone.
There's no way
angry.
to traverse it properly, so we don't have to spend much time on it. But I guess my point is, yes, he has some racist thinking for sure, and he displays it in the movie, no question. But so I guess my point is, I'm not saying he should be forgiven for it. I'm not saying he's not behaving in a bad way. I'm just saying when your immediate family and then your brother and your nephew and everyone else were killed by these people, I think murder's still worse than saying half-breed at the dinner table.
Yeah, right.
I know that might be. I know it's controversial to say that saying half-breed is probably a greater sin than murdering somebody's entire family. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say murdering somebody's entire family is probably worse than your retort being you half-breed.
Yeah.
I think if somebody murders your entire family, you're allowed at least 2 half-breed comments to the killers of your entire family. I think that's okay.
It's a given.
Are we fucking crazy? Can you understand why he may think this way? Not saying it's an excuse or that it's good. And he may even have felt that way before that. Probably did. That doesn't surprise me one single iota. But we got to deal with what we're seeing in this fucking movie, which is this guy who feels away. Don't call me uncle, he tells him. I mean, he's really mean to this kid.
Yeah.
By the way, Captain Christopher Pike, looking young and hot.
I was going to say, hell yeah.
That's who that is. There's bright blue eyes, that tan skin, handsome devil.
Until he gets put
Slid
in that
off
box.
my chair watching this. He's a cutie pie, that one.
Yeah.
Nice and brown from being out there in the fucking hot-ass desert sun.
Hell
God
yeah.
damn, he's a cutie pie.
The handsome man.
Handsome fucking half-breed or otherwise. I think he's cute. But no, it's it's complicated. He's a guy with troubling views and a sordid past. Where it's indicated that he didn't come home for 3 years. Maybe he was an outlaw. Yeah. He had clean double eagles. He had clean coins on him. Did he rob a fucking bank?
Probably.
Maybe. There was a lot of these guys in the post-war era. Jesse James, guys who used to be bushwhackers for the Confederacy or for the Union. And then they war ends and they're like, well, I guess I'm going to be an outlaw because my skill set is martial and I don't know what else to do. And that's where a lot of these guys come from. War veterans. Yeah. They're like, I guess I'm going to be a gunfighter. I guess I'll be Wild Bill fucking Hickok.
And I mean, you had this whole theater to the west where you had no laws and you were breaking laws for the government anyway. So you're like, well, why don't I just go out and apply my trade out west where I can keep doing it? I'm good at it and no one's going to say anything. It's the North and South had a bunch of things like that. Like North had the carpetbaggers that came down, all these politicians.
Carpetbaggers?
Yep, all these politicians that came down and set up the governments, these crony governments to just basically extort the South of all their wealth and natural resources. But
Of course.
and so there's no one that owns the morality high ground in this, and that's one of the things I like to reiterate when you watch movies like this of that time period, was that morality is subjective, especially with your life experiences. Like you're saying, if your whole family was murdered by a certain type of people, especially in 1868, you're gonna feel some sort of way about it. You're not going to be like, I'm going to hang out with those guys. You're going to be like, every one of them goes to die. Now, a quick story. I'll tell you this about my grandfather. My grandfather fought in the Pacific Theater and in World War II. And when he came home, he never, ever spoke another word to an Asian person ever again. If there was the only person in the store.
Where was he? Do you know? Do you know where he was out there?
I have no idea, because
Was he a Marine or Army?
He was just Army. He did see fighting. He did see combat. He came back shell shocked. But he didn't really tell me too much, and I'm having trouble getting records from the War Department. I've petitioned for it, but
no shit.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all the information. But he said, I have no reason to talk to any of them because they killed all my friends. And I was like 10 years old, and I was like, Jesus, Grandpa, and I was like crying. I was just fucking scared. But I see why he's like that about the Comanche. I've seen it firsthand. Doesn't mean my grandfather was right, because he wasn't, but
correct. Because the reality is the people you see in the streets are not, in fact, they're literally not the people. You weren't asked to make friends with the people on the other side of the war. The guys bayonet charging you, you weren't asked to make friends with those people. But that's right. That's, I guess my point is that there are some people who are just like, for no fucking reason at all, for very thin, stupid reasons, and for most of the time, unjust reasons, they just feel a certain way about other people. It's really fucked up. It's collectivist thinking. It's my worst. It's my least favorite thing is collective ideology, and collective ideology is also can also be racism, believing you are superior or whatever, or thinking as a group, like I'm a this, so I can't like a that. Like, what is that? It's all people. They're all just individual fucking people. And you can, again, so much of this shit is like the liability shield. The group is your liability shield, right?
Yeah.
And again, you're like you said, your grandfather's thinking, although you could easily sit there and say that it's wrong or suboptimal or it's a racist, he's holding a racist ideology in his head. But also when you go, well, when he saw the faces of these people who to him look similar and may even be similar, kill people and guys screaming for their moms with their guts blown out all over the fucking place, he's probably going to feel a certain way. And there's probably a lot of mental trauma there, a lot of problems going on. And I'm willing to bet, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm willing to bet if he could have had the pleasure of meeting some cool Asian person, he may have he might have maybe come around on that.
Yeah, he might have. He might
have come around on that idea. And that's, it always reminds me, there's just this great fucking, there used to be this really good podcast called Race Wars. I think it's still around. It was run by two comedians, Kurt Metzger and Sherrod Small. Sherrod Small, black guy, hilarious, from New York, comedian. There was a guy who called they were like, and they had a call-in show. So sometimes the guys would call into the pod. And there was a guy who was like, oh, I'm a racist. I've told the story in the pod before. And the guy's like, oh, great. Get him on the phone. Sherrod's like, let me talk to him. He ain't going to be a racist by the time we hang up. And his point was like, let me just talk to the guy, And I'm sure Sherrod was Small. I don't want to speak for some comedian in New York, but he'd be the first to tell that racism is certainly real. But also, when he heard, and I think he did his bet, when he heard this guy was racist, the guy called the show and he's like, all right, what happened? He goes, what's the problem? How come what's the matter? What do we do to you? Like, he starts the conversation very much like that. And the guy's like, well, when I was younger, I got jumped and beat up. And, and the first thing Sherrod does, which is hilarious, and a comedian should always do this, is he victim blames. He goes, what did you do to them? He goes, did you call them the N-word? So fucking funny, dude. And the guy kind of laughs. He's like, no, I just blah, blah, blah. And they jump and they beat me up. And now, I'm not really into. And then, so they talk for a while on the phone and they're all making jokes and the guy's laughing and they get the guy laughing. And he's like, so now, do you like me? He goes, yeah, you're pretty cool, man. He goes, see, that's what it is. Like your experience. I'm going to overcome your experience with my fucking charm and humor. And It was just pretty cool. And I don't know if the guy hung up the phone that day and, you know, took down his fucking Ku Klux Klan hat and was like, I like black. I'm gonna go shoot hoops with the brothers in the park. I don't know what he did after the fact,
maybe,
or if it really had a lasting effect. But it was cool though. It was because like if a racist dude called the show run by white people, they'd be like, don't even put him on the phone. You know what I mean?
Shit, Lord,
we don't know how to deal with it. Whereas Sherrod's like, fucking put him on. I'll talk to him. And I just think that it's so cool that he did that. But we're way off the fucking path here. Let's get back on the fucking path. If we're tracking if we're tracking Comanche, we're lost and dead. We're dehydrated in the fucking desert of side tangents. So let's please talk about this fucking movie.
I'm reaching for my canteen.
I'm talking about New York comedians, for Christ's sakes. It's gonna be 5 hours this episode. Jesus Christ. We're still on the porch.
Yeah.
We're still on John Ford's porch shop. Fucking losers. What the fuck? Side tangent Johnny over here.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Jesus fucking Christ. Get Manja on here to keep us straight. Anyway, I guess my point is that yes, I think it takes guts for a movie to take a character like Ethan and say, Ethan is a guy who fought for the Confederacy. Ethan is a guy who never technically surrendered. The war ended and I guess he just went AWOL.
Just took off.
Then he became some kind of outlaw. Now he has certain beliefs about the Comanche to the point where he is thinking maybe these girls are better off dead than to have been sort of defiled by the Comanche. That's pretty deep racism, right?
Yeah.
In maybe there's the whole like, you've been defiled, hence your life is less meaningful, regardless of the attacker. But especially in this case, because the attacker is Comanche, my hated fucking enemy, who's been killing my family forever, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty applicable.
And calling my nephew a half-breed, and not he's adopted, but in saying things like, don't call me uncle, and we got to grapple with that. And that's why when people say their movie's trying to make him look like a hero, I'm like, they make him look like an asshole, a competent asshole, but a fucking jerk with shitty thinking. And to the point where other characters in the movie are like, this fucking guy, like he's
sucks.
Kind of a pain in the ass. He fucking sucks. But he's competent. He knows his shit. He's relentless. And we have to grapple with that fact. Because are we living in a world where there's just no redemption? Do you know what I mean? Like, are we going to show a character and just be like, and again, let's not side tangent in, but like in this movie, do we want, Jon Snow executes a kid, right? Like, I remember that being like really interesting to me. The kid hanging and the kid, tried to stab him or whatever, but he's Ollie, but he's just a fucking kid. He doesn't know any better. He's been indoctrinated and now you're hanging him. That's fucked up.
Yeah, he deserves it though. He stabbed him and he shot Ingrid. Right. So, I mean, fuck that kid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe, but I guess you know my point.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
You're hanging an adolescent, who is like, these people are evil, they're bad. We gotta. They're the like that. That's like saying that's like pulling a 15-year-old kid off of one of these horses that ride with the Cheyenne and executing him. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange.
Or vice versa. Like the Cheyenne would kill those guys too. Like if you were fucking 16, you're done. You're dead. They're gonna fucking execute you.
No
reason
to keep
torture
you. Yeah. Jesus. And the torturing they used was pretty brutal.
To be. My point is this: there has to be fucking redemption in characters, and maybe part of the thing is people that have bad ideas and bad ideology and think poorly about other people, while maybe not actively trying to repress those people, have really backwards thinking and think people are inferior or shitty or something because they're different. But does that automatically mean that person can't do a good deed? Can't be whatever? And I don't even know if by the end of this movie, I'm not even saying that Ethan maybe deserves, quote, redemption. But he is a guy who did a thing and rescued this woman. And that's something. It just makes it complicated. And it's funny because when I read this guy's review, and I know I'm beating up on him, but I'm not going to name him. But it's like you could tell he was upset that he had to feel a way about this guy and then yelled at the movie for trying to paint this guy in a good light.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's complicated. We want to put shit in boxes. We want to just say he was a Confederate and he's racist. He's a bad guy, period. He can never do good things. I can't deal with it. I'm going to fucking short circuit if he does a good thing. Like it's just a weird place for us to be. And yeah, I wouldn't want to hang out with fucking Ethan. I wouldn't want to invite him over for supper. I would be concerned about the way he talked about things and how I would argue with him probably at every fucking turn, and then have to fight a 6'2" man that they called the Duke. That would suck.
Yeah, he'd kick your ass.
But also, like, yeah, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he has this in the movie, wants you to struggle with this. It paints him in a shitty light, I think. He's fucking all the shit he does in this movie. We got to go through all the shit he does, and we're like, God, this is fucked, man.
Well, I mean, he is shitty in the beginning. I think he does get redemption at the end. I mean, we'll get into it later on why I think that, but I think he does have redemption. Maybe not for everything, but at least for some of his negativity in the way he sees things. Because he initially wants to kill Debbie.
Right. But before he wants to kill Debbie, let's talk about all of the hallmarks of these moments where you're like, well, what the fuck? It starts with calls Martin a half-breed.
Yeah.
Then it becomes it's Comanche. Oh, okay. Then we realize, it's Comanche and they've killed the rest of your family. Like, think about that. This guy comes home from a war, and not how much long later is his family killed by a raiding party, a war party, who tactically drew them out by letting out the cows so the family would be defenseless and they could raid them.
Yeah, that's dark.
Smart as fuck.
That's dark,
smart,
though.
dude. Right? Draws them away in a brilliant move and attacks this defenseless homestead. And that's that for those people. And now his hatred's kicked into high gear. But yeah, when they find the dead Comanche and he shoots his eyes out, and he's like, now he's going to wander in the afterlife between worlds. And I'm John Wayne. And that's what he's going to do. But like, I don't know about you, but if I came home to my dead brother, if my brother's 2 houses away, if I came home to my dead brother and I knew a group of people did this that lived yonder, and they shot and they murdered my brother and murdered my brother's entire family and his wife and the kid and everything else. And then I saw this person dead and I didn't have the pleasure of killing that person, I might want to do something to fuck them over in the afterlife if I thought that's what they believed, then I might shoot their eyes out.
Yeah.
You know?
If we're being real, and we're being honest, which I'm going to be honest, you bring the sword, you get the sword, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that they were wronged. He was wronged. His family was wronged. And so he takes it upon himself. He didn't get to kill him, like you said. So he took it upon himself to fuck him over on the afterlife, which is very important to the Comanche. So fine.
Mm-hmm.
Tit for tat, you know, an eye for an eye, as they say, old school Testament stuff, you know.
It's no fucking joke.
And I mean, you know, if I'm being honest here, if someone wrongs my family, I want to wrong them. It's a real thing. Right. I mean, some people can turn the other cheek and ask for forgiveness. I'm not that person.
Yeah, you're talking justice.
Yeah. Yeah, not justice in a court where justice is supposed to make you whole.
I know what you're
justice is supposed to make you whole. Nothing makes you whole. However, it can balance the scale a little bit. You know?
No. Yeah. And even if it's just you got to send a message to the people murdering your family that they can't just do that without some sort of payback.
Yeah, retribution.
You can't just say, well, we're going to be victims then in perpetuity. You have to say, well, no, we're going to take some of you out in that process. We have to, because otherwise we're just going to allow unmitigated attacks against us, you know. But it goes further. Like, there's the funeral and he gets fucking mad. Bring it to an amen already. Like, this guy, let's go fucking kill.
Yeah.
Let's go find these people. But that's the thing I want to talk about with Ethan. What do you think about the Ethan character as far as this? Because I had this thought. He can barely maintain himself at the funeral of his brother, nephew, and probable lover in Martha, you know? I'm going on the assumption that he plowed Martha.
Yeah.
They still are hot for each other in that Debbie. All right, Martha, I'm going to plow you now. But I think Debbie is his kid.
I think so too.
So all that aside, let me pose a question to you. Is he in a hurry, such a hurry, to go and get this girl back as much as he is in a hurry to go fucking kill as many Comanche as he can? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, his hatred for them is so high that he's like, great, now I can just go kill them.
I think he didn't allow himself to grieve so he could hold on to that anger to use it to kill Comanche. Now, remember, he's been fucked over by them before, and he's thought about this, and he doesn't. I think he's so heartbroken that he's like, you know what? I don't need the, gather at the beautiful river. No, it's like, say amen. Let me go. I got things to do.
I went down to the river to pray. Shut the fuck up.
Say amen. Let's go. He's he's like Vasquez. Let's rock. He's ready to go.
Not a 50s movie. In a 50s movie, he's like, fucking mount up, hard necks. We're going out after some. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring it to an amen, I think is his word.
That's great. That's a great way to like finish it. He doesn't, and like when you're lost, like, okay, real quick, I'm gonna get real. I do this once in a while. The listeners don't, that one of my cousin was murdered in the summertime. Now,
yes,
egregious. She didn't do anything. She was just a victim,
inadvertently
shot in a car and murdered. Now, I'll be honest with you, I felt this way. I felt like I wanted to just prowl the fucking nights to find who this was and hurt them. And it's not the best part of you, but it's a real thing. And for him, I feel I tapped into that watching this. I felt that it was like a mirror when he's like, I didn't want to go to the funeral. I didn't want to see this. I didn't want the flowers. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get out there and hurt the people that hurt me, hurt my family, took people away from me. And so watching him go, all right, put an amen to it. Let's go. It hit me harder than it should have, because I've had that experience that he's dealing with right now. Obviously, I'm not in the Wild West or anything, but I've had that experience.
You don't have to disqualify it. We know what you're saying.
And it's I could see where it's some people, it's easier to tap into the anger than it is to have forgiveness or just have like a sadness. Some people use that anger to fuel themselves to do something more. Be it hunt down the Comanche that murdered your family, or just try to change laws or do things and make things better. And I think that's something that, is important to watch, and it's important to his character. And I think it gives him a little, his first order of business is to kill Comanche. His second order, if I can, bring home my niece/daughter,
or kill
if she's too far gone.
Right. Yeah, man. That's obviously first of all, thanks for sharing. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate the fact that you shared that story. And man, it's it's dark business. Yeah. It taps into a dark part of your soul to think about that kind of thing, man. And I think it's just really hard for us to understand that at all. It's hard for us to understand, how you feel in 2024. Imagine how they felt in the 1850s. Yeah. Probably similarly, except more like if you didn't do something, you weren't really honoring your family. You were kind of letting them down in this time.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
That's a very different mentality. But it's this entire flick, man, is gorgeous to look at.
Yes.
Right?
I do. So many notes.
The fucking scene. First of all, they always ride single file to hide their numbers.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Just and people.
But the scene at the half an hour mark where the Rangers are riding and Scar goes up on the hill and he's like, 50 yards, maybe 30, 40 yards from them. And he's just watching them. I think this is brilliant. Dude. I just love they don't run over the hill and dash into mad run and attack him. You know what it feels like? It feels like the Rangers are buffalo.
Yeah, predator and prey. Absolutely, that's what I wrote down.
In the fucking Scar, the war chief, he comes up over the hill and he's like, "Cool, there they are." Now we're just going to slowly move in on you and just kill you all.
Yeah.
And then, and I love, I love how the Reverend Sam, he's just like, he knows it's coming, and they're just riding. And the first thing you hear when Scar presents himself, when he crests that hill, and he pulls up on the horse, the first thing out of Samuel's mouth, and he just kind of waves and he goes, keep going, keep going.
Yep.
It's so realistic to me. It's that moment where things are getting weird somewhere and you're like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like but he says it with such calm demeanor that I think it's just awesome.
Yeah, like he's been in that situation before where like, okay, this is what we do. We got to keep moving. And what freaked me out was that you see the war party on the left of them, and then they look over to the other direction, and there's another war party on the right of them, and they're already sandwiched. And I love that Ethan calls the Reverend out on this. He goes, "Yeah, cool. You got us in a pincher. You got us sandwiched in between these two people. We're gonna die."
Yeah, dude, the shot of them walking in the foreground and the Comanche walking in the background in the track, that brief track of that is just incredible. It looks so awesome.
And like
in those mesas jutting out from the fucking sand.
It's just beautiful.
And them rolling over that, just the dust of the hooves of the horses in that dry fucking climate is just that right there. 3115 is such an amazing piece of filmmaking to me, and it shows such patience, right? I just love that. Like you so many filmmakers I feel would be like, Comanche, see him quick.
Yeah.
Push in right away.
Yeah.
And then they try. No, they're just walking. They're walking with him, waiting for that perfect moment to strike. And I just think that's so clever. Like you said, I think you summarized it best. You're like, it's very predator and prey. Yeah. It so is. That's such a good way to say it, because that's what it is. You see this a lot. You'll see like buffalo looking around, a cat rolling up on them, or hyenas or wherever the fuck, and they're just kind of watching, and then boom, they go.
Waiting. Yep, absolutely.
It's just an incredible sequence.
And like this spot, especially in the movie, Ford loves to use the wide angles on everything, the wide shots on everything to showcase the untapped wilderness. This was filmed in Arizona, obviously, because those butts are they're out in Arizona, but it's supposed to be northern Texas. Yeah. But I mean, it is pristinely untouched, and
I'm not a geography expert, but would you call those mesas?
I think they're mesas. I don't know what they called them.
The rocks that just come straight up out of the ground, and they're like weathered or eroded. And some of them are circular. You see them in Utah a lot, I guess.
Yeah, you're right.
I thought some of this was shot in Utah.
You're right. It is mesas. They're called mesas.
They're called mesas. Yeah.
And they're so it's. I love that this movie takes time to have there's like you have the Comanche. You have these they kind of be regulators coming out there. They're coming out there to find this girl or kill the Comanche. Mm-hmm. And then you have the third thing, which is the wilderness. It's something Ford showcases a lot in this whole movie. The wilderness is its own kind of entity, and it's so beautiful. And I love the fact that they took the way they shot the film into consideration with how beautiful and untouched it is in the backgrounds.
Yeah, so nuts, dude. So there's a guy in this movie named Chief Thundercloud.
That's a rad name,
dude. He is. I don't think he's Comanche. He's something else. But there's a ton of actual American Indians in this movie. With the exception of the main bad guy, which is a white dude. Names some German dude named, what's his name? Henry Brandon. He plays Chief Scar. Yeah.
I thought
he was a thing back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have the extras are Native Americans, but you got to have the white guy dude in the
yeah, that's a product of the time.
Yeah,
obviously, obviously they sort of got away from that into the 70s, even in the 70s and the 80s. But yeah, it was he played a lot of different ethnicities in his day. That guy actually, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, he
was an immigrant from Germany or some shit, and he played that guy.
Cool.
But yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to see Wes Studi, but Wes Studi couldn't have played that part in the 50s. I don't think he was quite old enough.
Yeah, right. He's like 4 or 5.
Yeah. It's too funny. But it's a great scene, dude. And then when Sam breaks him into a run and it just becomes an all-out balls race to cross that river.
Yeah,
which is moving pretty quick.
Yeah, I thought it was sped up a little bit, and it might be a little bit.
I think you're right. I think it is a touch, but man, it is insane.
And
the fact, first of all, in the 50s, everybody could ride a fucking horse.
That's
right? All these people could ride horses.
That's the thing.
John Wayne, all these actors could ride horses.
They were competent riders, and I love the fact that none of this is clean. They're falling off their horses for real in the water. That's not them acting. Like one thing about this movie is all the action is chaos in everything between the fights and even just like there's parts where they're throwing down like items and they're talking in rooms and they just throw things against the walls. A lot of chaos in the action, and it's real, and I love that. Obviously, CG didn't exist. This is just straight rugged dudes riding horses through water and falling, and it's chaos. It's not beautiful. It's got a realism. I don't like to really use that word, but it's got a realism to it where like if you and me were riding the horses through the water, we'd do the same thing. We'd eat shit and fall in the water and have to grab the reins of our horse and bring it over by hand.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. And there's a couple moments where like that horse just stepped on that. There's a moment where the Comanche gets sort of pushed back, and then the horse tips forward. The rider comes off, and then another horse tips over the top of that horse, stepping on the horse, and likely the guy who's in the water, who's probably dead. Like some of the shit that happens in the movie, like that guy looked like he got really fucking hurt by that horse, or that horse went down weird, or anything else. But so a couple of cool parts about this sequence here. First of all, I love that this movie showcases the reality of what happens if you get into a fixed position and you have cover and somebody else doesn't have cover. Not only do they not have cover, but they're they're fording a river with trying to keep one arm on the reins and the other arm on a weapon. Almost impossible to fire you in those conditions. And I just love this tactical idea that I feel like in a modern day movie, they'd have to explain the tactical significance of what the Rangers are doing here, which is if we can get across that river first, secure positions behind cover, brace our fucking rifles and pistols, and just start opening up on these guys, we might give them pause.
Yeah, and they do.
And they do. And it's funny because the article, again, I'm going to beat up that review. He was like, oh, these Comanches are supposed to be great warriors. They make them look like idiots and buffoons. How stupid to cross the river. I'm like, is this guy like you
he's got to be in a basement, right? He's got to
I guess my point is I guess he was thinking like, oh, the Comanche are being portrayed as dumb idiots instead of the fearful warriors they are. I never felt like they were dummies.
No.
I felt like they were like, we got these guys like 3 or 4 to 1. Let's take a shot at crossing the river. And then when they start taking casualties, they fall back.
Yeah, they bug
it's
out.
Not like
they were at a
fall back
tactical
instead of charging all the way up and all dying.
Yeah, they were at a tactical disadvantage, and their leader was like, "Okay, we're going to lose everyone. Let's get out of here." That's smart.
Exactly.
That's actually more smart than a fucking charge, not paying attention and just getting decimated.
Exactly.
And these guys have cover. They have
repeaters.
They have repeaters,
lever action,
lever action. Yeah. And I was watching this, and the revolvers, they're definitely either firing real rounds or blast caps, because there's recoil when they shoot.
Blast caps, I bet.
And you watching their whole body's jolting when they're shooting, even just the revolver, and it's got some kick to it. But I mean, as far as people, if you've ever shot a gun, you see reality. You see how actually, things can be real and things can be not real when it comes to firearms and movies. And this is a pretty accurate movie, and the tactics are accurate too. You wouldn't want to be in his war party if he's like, let's charge, we got him. No, we're gonna get shot and we're gonna die.
Yeah, and like we already talked about when we discussed the book. The Comanche were doing war for a long, long time before this. They're all like, think about how intense that is and why they had so much success. Dude, you're dealing with veterans
Yes.
of 100 years or more.
Yeah.
Like they grew up in this culture of fighting and raiding. And the second you're old enough, you're a fighter and a raider. Period. It's very Spartan, like
very much
S.C.
so.
Gwynn says. And that's tough. That's tough odds to fight against some people that trained and disciplined, and people who can maintain their cool under fire. You know, that's a crazy thing. Also, a couple things. When that shot of those of the Comanche coming down the mud through the grass puts on the headdress, I'm kind of like, let's fucking go. This is sick. They're ready to go fuck them up. And then they start the chanting. The chanting is actually Navajo. In fact, all the extras are Navajo.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
which is ironic because the Comanche fucked up the Navajo. But all of the Native Americans, it's the area. Yep. All of the Native Americans in the movie, the extras are Navajo Indians. And the song they're singing is not, in fact, a Comanche death song. It's actually a social Navajo song, referred to, according to Amazon, as the squaw dance song. I know a word that's become now unpopular. I don't know if that's the Navajo call it, but that's what it's called in the notes here. And all of them are Navajo, with the exception, of course, of Chief Scar, which is a German-born Jew.
All right.
All right. Okay. Sure. I mean, he's tan.
Yeah.
He got a nice tan on him.
They're all tan. They're looking good. Nice and svelte. Yeah, I was gonna say.
You don't see latte tits on that dude, do you? Them are hard bodies.
Hell yeah.
These are not Hulu predator people.
No, dude, no latte tits.
The fucking 80-year-old ladies with fucking rifles and shit. Everyone in this movie has hard knuckles and strong hands. They can ride horses. They're all tanned with piercing blue eyes.
Hell yeah.
Or otherwise. They're all real fucking rough riders. And the Navajo are part of that. Boy, is that a lot different than looking at these humps from 2020, whatever the fuck. Those.
Can you help me? I can't open the screen.
Comanche? Were they supposed to be Comanche in that movie?
They were. They look so shitty. They look so shitty.
Stop it. I didn't see one baby strangled. That'd be so sick. Dude, it would be my favorite movie if that girl at one point they raided and she just strangled a baby and then she's like, now I'm going to go fight the predator. I'm like, this is the best fucking movie ever. I love that you leaned into the baby strangle.
You went full Comanche.
Yep. Like they did at the Parker compound, which was rape the lady in the dirt, gang rape her, and then puncture her breasts with spears, and then she died.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, where's that in the fucking Predators movie? Let's fucking go.
No, she's got a boomerang tomahawk.
Fucking silly fucking movie.
Dumb.
Fucking dumb. The worst portrayal of Comanche of all time. Can you imagine if you resurrected a Comanche and then sat him in a movie theater, handed him salty, buttery, fake popcorn, and just said, "This is what they think you are." I'd hope he'd stab you in the face.
You're like, what is this shit?
Yeah. This is some bullshit. Popcorn's pretty good, though. Fuck. Does that look like one of your warriors? He's like, where does this person live?
He's 85 pounds.
Gets on his horse.
Soaking wet.
Gets on his horse, kills him. Hey, they were pretty small people. They were svelte, though.
Yeah.
You know, they were fucking svelte.
They were lean. No body fat amongst them.
Lean motherfuckers. Yeah. All you eat is buffalo and berries. You're going to be pretty ripped.
Like keto diet, man, or the Atkins diet.
Didn't the guys in the Hulu Predators look just like they only ate buffalo and berries?
Look like they just ate tofu.
And drank the tears of Calvinists who braved the West. Fuck yeah. Let's go. Oh my God.
Oh shit.
Pretty sick.
Dude.
So anyway.
Wait, he can't be that shitty, okay? Because he's hanging out with the can't get right.
Who?
Ethan.
You better be nice. If you go at my guy Mose Harper, we're gonna have words. I'll fight you right here. I ain't afraid of you. Like fucking Brad says when Brad says that to Ethan, I'm like, Ethan's gonna whip your
He's gonna
ass.
kick your
I'll
ass.
whoop you to a frazzle. I think he says such a good line. I want to say that so bad. I'll whoop you to a
You
frazzle.
don't even know how to respond to that. You'd be like, okay, I guess.
I'd be like, you're 6'2" and wide of shoulder. Yeah, I believe you.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, big feller. But no, yeah, it's cool though that this 40-year-old guy's married to a 19-year-old girl. I don't fucking know. Who am I to talk?
Yeah,
But,
just the way of things back then, I guess.
I love Mose Harper, the crazy guy with the feather in his
He's-
hat, who's right every single time, by the way.
Yes,
He's
exactly.
right every time.
Every time.
He's like the crazy kook with the fuck. He's that stereotype.
He's like the harbinger in all the horror movies. You better not go there. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
He got that guy.
Yeah.
But he's he's affected in the head. He's been out in the sun for too long. But so I mean, Ethan can't be totally shit. He's taking him with him. You know, he's not like,
yeah, of course.
you're not out there picking the grass. You know, even though later on he admits he got away from some people by pretending he was crazy.
No shit.
But I love how they just lever the guns down and just start shooting these Comanche coming across the water.
Absolutely.
And I feel bad. Like, look at
that's it.
We're watching it right now, and you're seeing like the Comanche like fall off the horse, and they're trying to grab back onto the horse, and the horse runs away, and the guy falls into the water again. Like it's
and when you're off your feet in that river, they're getting pushed by the river
right away. You see them being
they're
dragged,
getting moved. It's so crazy. I love it. When Sam runs out of bullets, and by the way, John Wayne's pretty handy with that spinning pistol shit.
Oh yeah.
He tosses the pistol over to Sam, and then Sam sort of like whips his hat off, hits John Wayne in the gut, absolutely by accident. Like John Wayne looks at him like, you fucking cop. I'm gonna punch you. I'll whoop you to a frazzle. Like, watch his face. He's like, ooh, he's like, what the fuck?
He's like, what the fuck did you do that
It's
for?
so good. And then if you watch, Sam misfires the pistol. It goes off.
Yeah, before he
crazy,
actually aims
he's
it.
pointing at the ground. Bang! See that?
Yeah,
It's cool.
and they just kept going.
But no, it's a great scene, and I love the difference here. Right, the Reverend, we don't know what we I guess we do a little bit, right? I guess everybody's a little bit racist on some level, but at one point when the Comanche turn and they go back across the river, they're withdrawing or even retreating, and Ethan just keeps shooting. He's like, boom, boom, just that anger. He just keeps shooting. And then when Sam steps in the way and like makes him stop shooting, it's not about ammunition. It's not about anything. He's just like, let them tend to their wounded.
Yeah. Well, because remember,
It's like a gentlemanly thing.
he's a reverend too. He's a godly man. So
Right.
he's like, okay, well, the engagement's over. Let them collect their dead and wounded and be done with it.
And move on.
And Ethan doesn't feel that way because he's been slighted and he
Yeah.
has that prejudice. It's real, but it's real that the reverend would be like, all right, calm down. They've withdrawn from the battle. I like it.
But I will say this, even if prejudice is motivating that a little bit, and maybe it is, certainly a hatred is.
Absolutely.
I think I'm willing to go out on a limb and say, based on what I know of Ethan, he probably wasn't a big fan of the Comanche or Indians prior to his family being slaughtered, but they were in fact slaughtered. So it's going to be very difficult to separate that from what he thinks of them, generally speaking, when he's lost God knows how many family members to them at this point from just pure raiding war parties. Yeah. And that's just, call it what it is.
Yeah.
They murder all these people. Now, all his emotion aside, there's a part of what Ethan's doing that I think I agree with. And that's, well, you came across that thing and you're going to kill us and or catch us and torture us to death. So as long as I can reliably score hits on them as they flee, I'm going to keep shooting.
Yeah.
them.
It's like, you wouldn't give
Because
give me
why am
the
I going to
quarter.
want to fight these?
Yes.
Why would I fight them later?
Yeah. And would you?
Why if they ambush me later in the movie, do I want them to have more or less numbers?
Exactly. Would they give me the same courtesy, would they give me the same quarter?
Fuck no.
Absolutely not. They'd be pulling your fucking your fingernails out with pliers, you know? So,
It's not good.
or jamming little pieces of wood. That's one of the things I read, that they were good. They love to torture people by putting wood, like shoots underneath your nails.
That sounds like what they would say about like the POWs in Vietnam. The one I heard in the Empire of the Summer Moon was staked to an anthill with their eyelids removed.
Jesus Christ.
That's fucking creative. I mean, fucking barbarism aside, that's super creative. Even the greatest, like, think of all the abhorrent shit that was done in the Spanish Inquisition. And again, by the way, I just want to make it very clear, and I hope people understand this about me as a person. I think we're all kind of nasty, you know, regardless of if whatever culture, skin color we are. We all got really nasty things in our history, and I think it should just be clear so that, you know, it doesn't seem like we're just picking on the fucking Comanche, because just look at the Middle Ages in England and how that went down. Oof.
Yeah.
You don't want to be anybody named Hugh Despenser the Younger,
or
at the time of Edward II's reign,
get a nice,
or at least the end of his reign. You know, you don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to get the hot poker.
Barbarism was just a way of. I mean, we're fucked up. Humans are fucked.
We're
up.
beautiful and savage at the same time.
Indeed. And but anyway, this idea, like, why do I want to fight these guys later? But it looked like, it didn't look like tactical thinking. It just looked like this driven hatred.
Yeah.
But either way, regardless of what motivated it, I think it makes sense to keep shooting them as long as you can. Why not?
Yeah.
They're warriors.
Yeah, it's part of the deal. Part of the deal. It's not like they're non-combatants. There's no quarter given. There's no rules of engagement. There's no Geneva Convention yet. It's just kill or be killed. Yeah.
Now, it's funny because I don't think you would have seen old women in a Comanche raiding party or war party like this. But one of the disturbing things that I was reading about was that Comanche women participated in some of the torture.
Really?
Which you don't always, that was very uncommon for the rest of native tribes, but I guess I don't really know. I'm just sort of saying that with really no reference. But I don't believe so, which is me just saying emotionally I don't think that was the case, but I don't really know. But yeah, that's intense. Like some of the shit that happened, and some of this stuff was an account from the woman who was captured. So I want to talk about that just a little bit.
All right.
The woman that was captured is Cynthia Ann Parker. When the Parker compound was raided and a bunch of people were killed, tortured, raped to death, you know, this whole thing, they took some of these people. One of the people they took was Cynthia Ann Parker. And she was taking at 9 and was with them for 24 years.
Shit.
And in 1860, she was captured away from them finally, all those years later. And now she's in her 30s and she's got multiple kids. And she was forced to assimilate back into quote unquote white culture in her 30s. And by all accounts, didn't want to go. And that's what's here's one of the most crazy parts of the Comanche story. Cynthia Ann Parker, all the people she knows and loves as she's a girl are murdered. Some in front of her, tortured in front of her. She's fucked. Over 24 years of being with these people, she decides that she doesn't want to leave these people anymore, that she's got kids here, family here. Of course, you could understand how somebody would feel that way. I'm sure there's a lot of Stockholm going on here. We've heard the term Stockholm Syndrome, right?
Yeah. I mean,
and, you know, her wanting to stay and yeah, probably for her kids. But it's really interesting that her son is a man named Quanah, I believe it was. Quanah Parker. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, I think it's Quanah Parker.
And Quanah Parker was was the last major war chief of the Comanche before all of the surrendering. Think about that. Think about the trajectory of the Comanche beginning and end of their empire. Somewhere in the middle of it, they take this white lady and she births the last war chief of the Comanche. How insane of a story is that?
It's crazy.
You can't write movies that good.
No. I'm surprised.
Quanah Parker,
Dude.
who, by the way, by all accounts, killed a ton of people, including white people. Right?
Yeah.
And becomes a brilliant man. He's a brilliant guy by all accounts. Becomes a businessman, a fucking speaker. He becomes involved in all these committees. He really whites it up, right? I'm gonna just say that's what that is. He's really embracing the white side of himself, doing all that shit, like being a fucking selling out. No, I'm kidding. But there's a photograph of him. There's quite a few.
Dude, he's
in 1905 riding with Teddy Roosevelt's inaugural parade.
That's fucking awesome.
Think of that fucking story. His mother had her family butchered by Comanche. The women in the family were raped and murdered and tortured to death. She was taken. She birthed the guy who was the last war chief who did his own killing, which he didn't brag about, by the way. Smart guy. And then he's riding on a horse next to Teddy fucking Roosevelt in 1905. That's insane.
That's one hell of a life.
What a fucking crazy life that is. God damn, dude.
Dude, he looks intimidating. Like, he looks...
He's a scary... Dude, those eyeballs, those eyeballs have seen some shit. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yep. That is a crazy story. 1836 to 1860.
Yeah, she only lived to be like 40 something, or Cynthia only lived to be like 43 years old.
Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. I'm just looking at him
Yeah,
too.
because she never fully got back into white culture. Because going back to what I said at the beginning of this, think of the irony of what the people who are moving west are looking for, to be free of these institutions and to be free. And think of the life that, Stockholm syndrome, I can't imagine. I can't imagine there wasn't some sort of sexual abuse that happened. But eventually, 24 years into this time where she's taken by these people, she assimilates to their culture forcibly, whatever you want to call it. You can judge the Comanche for how they did her and her family. Go ahead if you want to. But at one point, she doesn't want to go. And when she does, she never really kind of gets back into it. She never really feels like she's assimilated back into that culture outside of that lifestyle.
Well, that's actually...
And she birthed the last war chief of the Comanche. That's insane, Scott.
It's crazy. But we were talking about people wanting to be assimilated back into the Western culture. That never happened. People, when
it's super rare.
When they were taken, I think there's one or two people that are documented that when they were found with the Native Americans, they were taken back and they actually wanted to go back. Most were like, yeah, this life's better.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it depends on the tribe. I think it vastly would depend on the tribe in question.
Well,
it might be harder to assimilate to nomadic, warlike life of the Comanche versus, something like the Iroquois or some shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about the documentation I've seen is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
It's a lot of even like soldiers and things, like even take, for example, like Dances with Wolves. That happened a lot.
Do the ride.
Yeah, right. They did. You're tired of the West, or you're tired of Western life, and you go out there and you're peaceful with Native Americans, and you want to live with them, and they accept you.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to go? Yeah. Do you want to go work in a factory, or do you want to like collectively do work for 3 hours and then hang out with everyone and have a good time every day? I can kind of see why they did it.
Pretty crazy. One stat I'll correct is when Mexico owning Texas, when they gave away land, they actually gave away 20,000 acres to the fucking white putos who became a meat shield between them and the Comanche.
That's some Roman Empire shit. I'm going to pay the Visigoths.
That's some smart shit.
Yeah. I'm going to pay the Visigoths to kill the Vandals.
Fucking sombreros off to my Mexican brothers. That's pretty fucking smart, dude. I'm not going to lie. That's good shit.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's the French did that with Normandy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go fuck up the English. Go ahead. But well, let's take a break.
All right.
We've talked for a while here. We're 2 hours in. This is going to be 3 hours by the feeling of it so far.
Probably.
But it's going to be long. But yeah, well, probably maybe we'll see. But we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back because I'm doing the pee-pee dance.
Yeah. Me too.
Anybody want to see me talk and do the pee-pee dance? So I got to go pee.
All right.
I drank a lot of water, Scott.
Yeah, I got to get another water,
All right,
too.
we'll be back in just a few minutes. For those of you listening, what am I saying? It's not going to be minutes. It's going to be seconds. This is not live. It's going to go, we probably play a silly little fucking, stinger, and then we'll be right back. So sit tight. We'll be right back.
Cool.
My 6 guns. Fan the hammer. Yeah, we'll be back. And we're back. And before we get back to talking about the movie or tangentially referring to the movie, I would like to quickly take a moment to do my pitch, to pitch our wares. And what am I pitching? I'm pitching membership. This podcast exists because of members and their memberships to us. Memberships is something like Patreon, where you pay us every month. You get access to bonus content, including a pretty robust back catalog approaching 600 episodes. And that's pretty amazing. Now, a lot of times I get all these fucking, I just go off the cuff. I don't write how this is going to go up. I don't know how it's going to go until I start doing it. Today, here's how it's going to go. One of the things I think we've always prided ourselves on is the fact that we try to be as honest as possible. We try to be as honest as possible. And I think that's something that we're doing. Talking about, it's difficult to talk about the merits of a Confederate. It's difficult to talk about the savagery of an Indian tribe. It's difficult to talk about this stuff because the world is a fucking minefield of shit you can't even talk about anymore. You can't even ask questions anymore without being called a this or a that or a whatever the fuck. And I just can't abide that. I'm somebody who tries to be very fair in this stuff as much as I can be. I'm sure I'm blinded by my own thinking at times. We all are a little bit, but there's a reason we have members. There's a reason people support us, is because I think they think, and I hate to use the word important, but I think they find it refreshing that we're not out here towing some sort of weird political line, be it conservative or whatever, or left wing or right wing or whatever, that we kind of just shy away from that shit. We talk about people as individuals. We try not to fall into the collective ideology, and we're just doing something and trying to be honest without being pulled in this direction and that, because all this bullshit in the world today keeps us from being able to have open and honest discussions about shit. And the other thing we're very fond of is we never think we're better than anybody. We don't think we're better than the people in this movie that lived 100 years ago or 200 years ago or people that live next to us right now. We try to just be honest fucking people and talk about entertainment in movies and talk about it with a bit of a perspective that might be with a perspective that admits its own ignorance. And that's something we're fond of doing. And this is kind of a real pitch, but that's the reality. We're not out here trying to we are holding nothing. We're holding no ideology sacred other than to just be open-minded, to challenge the status quo a little bit, and to allow ourselves to have difficult discussions about topics that I know you just start talking about a movie like The Searchers, and you just talk about a guy like John Wayne, and people like this, they get all tense, like, oh no, uh-oh, what are they going to say a bad thing about the Indians? Are they going to say a bad thing about the white people? Are they going to say a bad thing about the, and it's just like, please already. And this is what we do. This is how we talk about shit, just with honest, open, and admitting our own ignorance, leaning into some of the things we may or may not know about history, admitting what we do and do not know, and just having an open and honest discussion. And as silly as it sounds, it's cool to talk about this stuff. And it's cool to not be just completely inundated with towing some politics of the time or the hot button issues. There's a billion podcasts that do that. And frankly, a lot of people are kind of sick of hearing it all the time. And this or that, or this fucking red and the blue and the fucking please already, and the politics. It's like, can't we just have open, honest discussions about movies and have a good time and enjoy them? And and recognize that sometimes these characters are going to be suboptimal from a moral standpoint. Snake Plissken walking by a girl who's about to get raped. How bad is that compared to a guy like Ethan Edwards who may hold a certain ideology? I don't fucking know, and I'm not going to judge it. And that's the point. We just want to talk about this stuff and have a good conversation and invite you into it and not be like, well, you're stupid for thinking this way or you're evil. And that's what we do. This is the weirdest membership pitch of all time. But I guess my point is this. We have people who believe in us. They believe that it's important for us to do this, or at least we entertain them enough for them to do it. Whatever the reason, it doesn't really matter. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, the people who do listen, the people who have gotten this far and don't shut it off and just label us as X, Y, or Z, thank you. Thank you for having some fucking humanity and listening to what we have to say without jumping down our throats because we're trying to discuss a movie made in 1950, whatever the fuck, which is a time period people can't even wrap their fucking heads around if they're, under a certain age. And yeah, man, we're going to keep doing it. And we're going to do it as respectfully and hopefully as, with a funny edge or as to be as entertaining as we can. And we can do that because we have people that support us. And that's what we're going to always endeavor and continue to do. Scott knows, the listeners know, sometimes I like to ruffle feathers a little bit, or sometimes I like to go after the sacred cow. If it's in vogue to make fun of X, I'd rather make fun of Y. If it's in vogue to make fun of Y, I'd rather make fun of X. I don't know if that makes me some sort of contrarian asshole, but that's how I feel. Everybody's like, I love the fucking Comanche Predator movie, and I watch it. I'm like, this movie sucks, and I'm not afraid to say that. And I'm not afraid to say it. And I'm not afraid to say that the Comanche representation is fucking stupid. I'm okay with it. It doesn't make me an X or a Y or a Z or that. It doesn't. I'm just a dude saying this is what it is. I don't have a fucking agenda. I just call it like I see it, and I like that I get a chance to do that. And yeah, was I supposed to sell something, Scott?
Our membership, which you're doing just fine. Keep going.
I'm selling us. Ultimately, membership aside, who gives a fuck? What does everybody buy? They buy you. They buy who you are. They're going to buy me. They're going to buy Scott. They're going to buy Maja. Watch yourselves. They're going to buy it. They're going to buy us. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not talking like, the fuck's your name again? Not Cynthia Ann Parker buy. I'm talking like, but no. And that's, that's kind of what we just try to do out here. We used to say, irreverent, insightful, entertaining. That used to be our tagline. And I still believe that that's us at our heart. The things we revere, we make fun of, and we try to make fun of everything, but we also try to, sort of look at something with a little bit of a nuanced view, a multivariate view, instead of this like cut and dry and like, oh, and this and I'm gonna cast moral judgment upon you like you're some kind of fucking like radical fucking like religious type casting judgment from on high about how people are. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm doing it too by casting judgment on those who cast judgment. So I'm a hypocrite too. See, there you go. But I guess buy my membership.
Yeah.
LSG. LSGmedia.net, $5 a month, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's my pitch. Dude, I'm terrible at this.
No, you're not. It's fine. You know what, though? I don't think you're terrible. I think it's real. It's real. You're not like, and
that's all
now
it is. That's what we're here for.
Buy my dick hair cream. You're not doing none of that stuff. You're just being real. Just being honest.
I almost spit water when you said dick hair cream. What a horrible fucking product that would be.
Does it make your dick hair grow or does it make it fall out?
A belt buckle hits the ground and you just see a dude spreading this moose-like substance under their pubes. What the fuck is dick hair cream, you maniac? What's wrong with you?
You got another hour because I got a long list.
It's called Handsome Dan's Dick Hair Cream. Your wife's gonna love it. Cling.
Don't have enough dick hair to have too much. It works both ways for you, just depending on how much you use.
Buy 2 bottles of Handsome Dan's Dick Hair Cream and get a bottle of Cum Be Gone for those tricky stains. I should sell that better. I could sell that better than whatever some self-righteous horseshit I was selling a minute ago. Jesus Christ.
We're just gonna start talking in transatlantic.
Yeah.
Buy my dick hair cream.
And now back to the movie where John Wayne's about to get the engines a whooping. I don't think you can say that anymore, by the way. So I apologize for that. But,
Whatever.
in reference to the transatlantic voice. Transatlantic. What does that even mean? All right. So, back to the movie. Oh, I forgot about the listener comments. I'm just fired. Should I print them off as we speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I go to the printer?
Go to the printer. Just put a pin and we'll cut this part out.
Go to the printer. Go to the printer.
Captain on the bridge.
I'll pull them up. I'll pull them up and we'll look them over. No worries. I'm the Duke. I got him right here on my trusty iPad, I tell you.
All right.
This new fandangled gizmo.
Dude, do you think John Wayne would have an iPad, or would he be like, that's like the devil?
I don't think he'd call it the devil. Why wouldn't he? He was a rich guy.
That's true.
Ultimately.
That's true.
You know? It's funny that you think about, like, all the actors on this are all like grew up on a cattle ranch. Like, yeah. These are strong fucking,
You got shit done.
But man, the cinematography of this movie is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely breathtaking.
They nailed it.
It's beautiful to look at. But what a great movie. After the whole incident at the Ford, you get that scene where they realize they find Debbie's body. Right. So Ethan splits off from Lucy's body. They split off together. So Brad and Martin go one way.
Yep.
And then Ethan goes another. They go around a mesa of sorts and they meet on the other side. But before that, what I like is when after the shootout at the river, Sam says the company's not big enough to do what it needs to do, and it's not. Like he says, like the size is all wrong.
Yeah,
he goes, we either need a bigger company or a smaller company. Yeah. In other words, we either need to track them and use stealth or just overwhelm them with force because this in-between shit ain't working.
Yeah.
And I just like that. That sentence is like, yeah, there's a tactical awareness that these guys just had, just living that life.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And you got to remember, Ethan is a Civil War vet. He's also a vet of the Franco-American War, the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So... Mm-hmm. They have tactics. They're good at what they do. Obviously, he made it through both of them with relatively no scratches. So he's a competent soldier. And these other guys seem to be very competent as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, they're no slouches.
Everybody that has a rifle is like, yeah, I know how to shoot a rifle. But so they split up and they find Lucy's body. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Which you don't. Ethan plays off
very
first.
50s,
very 50s, because he's like, oh, what'd you see? And you can see that he's shaken up a little bit. He's a little off kilter. And then Brad is like, oh, where's your good Johnny Reb jacket? He's like, oh, I must have left it. Well, I'm not going back for it, so let's get going. Because obviously Lucy is Brad's squeeze. And he wants to spare him the fact of knowing that his girl was, raped and left for dead.
Mutilated.
Yeah.
Just a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And it's funny. They're not going to say that word. They're not going to, saying mutilation, even saying, like, raped or I guess they want to use the word defiled, like, just taboo.
Yeah.
They're not going to say that shit in 50s on the big screen, I don't think.
No.
It's so what's crazy about that is so here's a theory I read about this scene, and I think it's kind of a weak theory. The theory is he found her in there and killed her. I'm like, that's fucking the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No. But
A, what did he stab her? And what kind of maniac would do that? And B, she was alive with no Comanche around her, no shots fired, nobody heard any fighting. That's crazy talk. So I read that somewhere. I'm like, that definitely, in my opinion, I don't think he found Lucy and killed her. I think he found her fucking corpse.
I think he found her,
and it stunned him a little when he came and he gets off the horse kind of haphazardly and just plops down in the sand, and you can see it on his face.
Well, yeah, I mean that's their whole reason for this, or one of the reasons is that they're going out to save these girls and seeing how badly she was treated and left. And I don't think he would have killed her and left, then taken off his jacket and wrapped her and buried her. I think he wrapped her in a blanket, or wrapped her in his coat because he felt like that's what she needed, like some kind of respect, not just bury her in a hole, letting them naked or whatever have you, whatever your mind thinks with how they left her, it's a bad thing, and he's noticeably shook up. He's a little more quiet. It's I don't think he killed her at all. I think that's at least in my opinion, I think that's a bad call. As far as I think he just was shaken up by seeing someone he was going to save, mutilated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty dark business, man. And then Brad runs off and gets himself killed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is he goes, I wanted to spare you, knowing that that I found her. And
what do you want me to draw you a picture?
Yeah.
Great line.
He's gruff,
but also I wish Brad would have said yes. And then he starts going, all right. He
gets his
wipes
stick
the sand
in the
away,
dirt. Yeah.
Gets a stick. He goes, this is her.
Yeah.
This is her leg way over here. Should I continue?
Yeah, I wanted to spare you, but since you're being so literal, I'll draw it all out. But then he just runs. Yeah. He runs over the hill and dies within 30 feet. It seems like they're really close, but
a little too close.
Too close, but yeah. And I mean, you knew that was going to end badly. One guy running in there all crazed up, but he was mad.
Yeah.
He was heartbroken. All those things. He wasn't thinking right, and he died for it.
Yeah, he was not thinking right. So at one point, winter comes, and they kind of have to return to quote unquote civilization, and they go to the Jorgensen farm. Now, the Jorgensen family, that's Brad. So I know there's a lot of people in this movie, and it's a little confusing at first, but it's not that difficult once you watch it a couple times. And I watched this 3 fucking times. I just kept putting it on one day. It'd end, and I'd put it back on while I did other shit. I just kept restarting the movie.
Yeah,
that's how I do it sometimes while I do other shit. And the Jorgensens. This is Brad's father.
Yeah,
so Lars.
Family.
They're supposed to be Swedish, but he's got some weird ass fucking accent.
Yeah,
he's
it's not Swedish.
No, not Swedish at all. And couldn't look less Swedish, by the way.
Yeah.
And they come home. We realize that I forget her name. Lori by Vera Miles plays Lori. I was just told Lori's still alive. She's 96 or some shit.
No shit.
Which is insane. Yeah. The pretty tough girl.
Yeah.
The sassy tough girl.
Yeah, 94 years old still. She had two, I think she had two husbands. I think they both died already. So she's a Black Widow, right?
4 husbands. Maja's putting up 4 fingers.
Are you kidding me? Outliving them all. Good for her.
Fucking Black Widow, this one, huh?
Fucking A. But that's the thing is they travel through the winter. It's trying to show you that time has passed. At this point, when they show up at the Jorgensens, it's been a year. Yeah. Since they've been gone. Yep. So
and they got to feel there's got to be some defeat in them, right?
Oh yeah.
Again, we have Ethan coming back to a house empty-handed, just like he did at the end of the Civil War,
Yep. And he casually mentions, "Hey, you got my letter about your son Brad, right?" He's like, "Yeah, it was about a year ago," giving you a little bit of a time frame passage. And these guys, they seem okay with the fact that Brad's passed away. It's been a year, and they realize that it's not like us today where death seems pretty far away. Death is right around the corner. In when you're in the Homestead Act of that time period, and when you're out in the Wild West, death is very easily something that happens every day. So they seem okay.
Indeed.
And it's kind of cool they open their home to him.
Again, the opening the home to him is super interesting to me. And it's funny. I get what you're hinting at. They seem okay. They seem at peace with the fact that Brad's dead, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the movie. The strength of the decision of the movie to make this so far later means we don't really need to see the Jorgensens sort of go through the initial shock of realizing Brad's dead. We can see them a year later, which takes pressure a little bit off the actors to be like beside themselves with the fact that this guy's dead.
Yeah. Can move the story ahead a little bit.
Move the story ahead, kind of get through all this. But while they're staying at the Jorgensens, we realize that Martin Pauly, which of course is the adopted uncle, the adopted nephew, although he refuses to call him his nephew. But this is where we realize that there's a man named Futterman who has a post, and he sent a piece of fabric along, and this piece of fabric could be something from Deborah, I believe, the little girl Deborah.
Part of her dress.
Absolutely. And this leads them to go investigate the Fetterman farm. But while they're at the Jorgensens, one of the things I love about this is that I love that we get this dark moment. And I think this was probably a pretty dark sentiment in the 50s, again, when Martin Pauly is like, I think he's going to, I'm concerned if we find Debbie what he might do.
Yeah.
Again, we're seeing this haunted guy in Ethan, this dark soul, this wandering guy who maybe fucked his brother's wife, who maybe robbed a bank, who refused to surrender when the South surrendered in Toto, who maybe wandered as an outlaw for 3 years, who hates the Comanche, probably with good reason, who is not afraid to dive headlong into combat with these warriors.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to go out on his fucking shield, and he is driven by this obsession to get her back or to kill as many Comanche as he can, with the byproduct of getting her back. But now there's some doubt. Maybe he's going to harm her. Maybe he looks at her as less than. He called him a half-breed. Don't call me uncle. Again, we see this thinking that's full of hatred, and this overwhelming hatred for these people and what they represent to him. And now Martin's got wind of it. Martin has good instincts. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen, when we find her? I didn't like it. The way he was holding his knife, I think he says, right?
Yeah.
Stabbing it into the ground, thinking. And so Martin feels compelled to go along, much to the chagrin of Lori. Lori and Martin are, I think she's waiting for him to be like, will you marry me?
Yeah.
She kisses him on the lips a couple times. I mean, that's fucking, it's a big fucking deal back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, that point in time, that wasn't just, it's like getting a handy on the first date now. It's just different.
Through your Dune popcorn fucking holder.
Hell yeah.
The fucking Shai Hulud fucking pocket pussy. So
I'm going to fuck that popcorn bucket.
Put your hand in the box. Oyoko. But I think the Reverend Mother's going to determine if you are human or animal.
This is the gum jabbar.
Put your stick in the box. She's like, definitely an animal.
There's only pleasures in the box. Only pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. Pleasures. Oh, fuck. So, she's pissed at him and brings him a horse anyway, throws him his gun. She's angry. Still dutiful, though, and she's like, you take him and get out of here. But she tells him, I'm not going to wait for you. I'm sorry. I just waited a year or more for you. I'm not going to now wait again. So goodbye. I can't cut it. I don't want to be an old hag, I think she said. Right? She wants to get married. That's what she wants.
Can't blame her.
And he's like, well, I got to go off. I got to run off. And off they go again. And the Futterman stuff is fascinating. Again, the movie doesn't hold your hand through the dialogue. It doesn't explain things perfectly. It makes you infer. It makes you try to understand what happened here and come up with your own ideas as to what happened without spelling out every single thing that is going on in the movie. And I got to be honest with you, this movie's really opening my eyes up to kind of giving movies from the era more respect.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree.
Thinking like, oh, these movies, they're going to tell you everything that happens. And, I think every generation has this hubris about them where it's like, no, we figured it out. You guys hadn't figured it out yet. And it's just an arrogant presumption that everybody makes, especially when you're younger, about people who came before you. Like, well, we know better now.
Yeah,
But sometimes you don't, sometimes you don't. Maybe you think you do. And now I'm like, wow, this is a 50s movie, and they're not just spelling out the Nazis are over there,
right.
the Allies are over there. We're going to cross this bridge if it takes every last man and punish evil. And that certainly existed in the films. But this was an eye-opening experience for me with this Futterman stuff. You're like, whoa, what happened here? He says there's $1,000 reward. Next thing you know, Ethan shows up at Futterman's trading post. He pays him $20 and he goes, if I find her alive, I'll give you the rest. So what happened here? This is cool, right?
Yeah, you wonder if he knew that he was going to bushwhack him from the beginning.
I think so. I think once he didn't get paid all his money and he said, oh, I'm going to pay you after the fact, I think this guy either thinks or assumes that Debbie's already dead.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to sell him bogus information because the war can't, because the Comanche have moved on.
Yes.
And I think he thinks, I'm going to fucking kill this guy and take his $1,000.
He thinks
because he probably has
Yes.
$1,000 on him.
He thinks he has the money on him because he says, once you let me know, I'll give you the money. So he's like, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait because I'm selling him a bill of bad goods. I have no idea where these guys are. So I'm going to wait for him to go to sleep and I'm going to bushwhack him. I'm going to steal his shit and kill him.
Absolutely.
And that's dark when you think about it. You're like looking at this guy's face. You're having
dark business.
Yeah. He's just a foul, like, and then like the whole thing is, this is where I had that epiphany.
But pause right there about the back shooting, because I think that's where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Not only did Futterman cook up this scheme, and again, human life, whatever, but he cooks up this scheme and Ethan is hip to it.
Yes.
He reads that situation, man. You're talking about a guy with razor sharp instincts. He reads, this guy is full of shit. And there's probably so many things, so many things that I think a lesser filmmaker would spell out in dialogue at the camp. He'd be like, well, he didn't bat an eyelash when I wasn't going to pay him his $1,000. That probably means he's going to come kill us, probably because he knows I have to, they don't have to spell it out.
They let it unfold.
Like, it would be so easy through dialogue for him to just go like, for Martin to ask, why wasn't he mad when you didn't pay him the other $980 fucking dollars that you said you would? In a time where that's like, it might as well be $1 million.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he goes, I don't really trust him. We better watch ourselves tonight. Like, oh, fucking please. This is even cooler. He sets it up. He makes the fake bedroll. The whole fucking thing. But I blew past you. I ran you right over, and I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
You had an epiphany here.
Well, this is where
Talk to me about the epiphany.
This is where I had the epiphany that I had seen this before, and this setup. And I remember it being a big thing when I was reading when I was younger that, like, you could pretty much kill anyone and say it was self-defense as long as it looked like it was self-defense. But if you shot someone in the back, you were going to hang. It was a thing that was not, it's like when you steal someone's horse, you were going to hang for that no matter what it was, no matter what your reasoning was, just how it goes. And to watch how he unfolds this whole situation, he keeps Martin in the dark because I think he doesn't quite trust Martin at this point.
I have a theory on this. Do you want to hear mine
absolutely.
on that? Here's what I think. Here's why I think he doesn't tell Martin. When he sets up his fake bedroll and he sets his hat up, I think he thinks he's going to be the first target because he's clearly the more threatening of the two men.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Now, why or not he doesn't inform Martin of the plan is I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about that. And of course, hindsight's 20/20, so it's not like I'm some genius. But the way I see the play out, when I see the plan play out the way he does on screen, I go, that does make sense without them explaining it to us. Again, this is another moment of inference by me, the audience, by going, he made himself look like he was in a bedroll with a hat on over the top of him while he was sleeping, because Futterman knows that if he has to shoot one of these guys first, it might as well be fucking Ethan, because Ethan's the scarier of the two.
Yeah, get him while he's asleep. You kill Martin right after. Get him while he's
asleep, right after you kill Martin. So after he fires that one, and he waits for him to shoot, You got to be thinking, I hope he's aiming at my bedroll and not Martin's.
Right. Or
that's tough to judge from that angle. Like, where's that sight line going? Is it going to that bed or the bed 4 feet over to the left? You don't know.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the
but
time
he waits
to
for him
react.
to pull the trigger.
Exactly.
And then he opens fires.
And they gets them all. He gets.
But your theory about Martin is what?
Well, I just didn't. I wondered if he wanted to look real. So Martin's moving around. He builds the fire up big intentionally, maybe to kind of throw off the fact you can't really see.
I was wondering that too. Maybe so it would be easier to find the camp.
Yeah, either that or the fact of like, you ever stared at a fire in the dark, and you can't really see. After it's like you get a flash burn. It's like when I weld and you don't wear glasses, you get a flash burn in your eyes. You shouldn't do that. You stare in the sun like an idiot. Yeah, I was younger and stupid. But yeah.
Who needs retina?
Yeah, right. Well, I realized that after 3 days of not being able to see right. But I think it was that as well. I think it was he was drawing him out by building a bigger fire. And I think they didn't have the time to get Martin out of the way. He should have told Martin, like, hey, I think they're here. Like, act cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think I don't know why he wouldn't tell Martin. I'm still hung up on that a little bit. Or maybe he just realized that, like, he doesn't really care for Martin. I mean, he does.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. He does. We know that he overcomes some of this prejudice towards the quote unquote half breed as the movie goes on, because he bequeaths his fucking property to him in the event of his death, which is a big hurdle.
Yeah,
for a guy who you were like, don't even call me uncle, you fucking half breed. That's a bit of an arc.
Growth.
Not a big enough of an arc for us to say, oh, he's a heroic, redeemed character in the end. Oh, the movie's trying to trick me into liking this bad guy. Boo hoo. No, but we'll get to that. But maybe he doesn't tell Martin, because if Martin doesn't know, then Martin's going to play the perfect role of bait, because that's essentially what he risks Martin's life by making him bait. He certainly doesn't. Martin is pissed about it as well as he should be. He's mad.
Like, hey, let me know.
He's like, you use me as bait. What's wrong with you? Again, we're seeing these decisions. He doesn't cut people in, and and then suddenly, but the best way to compare it. I'm going to compare the Searchers to Battlestar Galactica reimagined. The best way to have somebody be completely fixed to a role for your purpose is for them to not know that they're fixed to a role for the purpose, right? In other words,
Cylon.
A sleeper agent Cylon is the perfect infiltration unit because it doesn't know it's a Cylon yet. He's the perfect decoy because he doesn't know he's a decoy yet.
Yeah, he's acting normal.
Like he doesn't know.
His behavior's normal.
And yeah, he shoots that guy in the back. But you know what? It's a gunfight. It's not murder in cold blood. Why is he? I'm willing to believe Ethan does not get punished for this gunfight because I have a sneaking suspicion that all is forgiven when they rescue Debbie.
Yeah,
and then I also have a feeling that this guy was at their camp. He came after them. What's Futterman even doing?
Exactly.
And why was he armed with a rifle?
That was going to be my defense for Ethan was the fact that this guy came to their camp. He's not at the Futterman trading post anymore. They're out in the middle of nowhere at their camp. They showed up. Yeah, it turned into something bad, but that doesn't mean I was the aggressor as Ethan. It was Futterman coming in trying to bushwhack me in the night. So you could argue that all day long in court. You'd be okay, I think. I think at the end. Yeah. And maybe Futterman's not a savory character either. So.
Oh, you think he was going to murder this guy and take his money? Yeah. He was going to murder both these guys. He doesn't even I'm just going to kill
for no reason.
Fuck it.
For their money.
No reason. Also, the movie begins in 1868. However, all the guns are 1870s vintage. The Colts are 1873 Peacemakers, and the rifles are Winchester 1892s.
Oh, so they're way off.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But
it's okay.
How way off are they?
Well, I mean,
like when you go 1868, but they're 1870s vintage, they're only a few years off on the pistols, but they're probably, and they're less than, and they're about, almost over 20 years off on the rifles. The real aficionado is going to know that. The real firearms enthusiast will know.
The average person.
The average person's going to look at a rifle and go. It's like when a dude whips out a sword in a medieval movie and they're like, well,
he has a claymore.
Like,
it wouldn't be a claymore. It'd be more of this, like, yeah, exactly.
Did you know that the Scottish didn't even wear kilts in the time of Edward I?
They also didn't paint their faces blue.
Yes, Dean, we knew it because you told us 10 fucking times. Shut up already. Fuck, we get it. They didn't wear the fucking kilts during Edward I's reign. Fine.
We get it. It's all right. But yeah, I mean, and the thing is too, is a lot of those models, believe it or not, stayed almost exactly the same, except for slight mechanical improvements on the inside. They looked relatively the same. So I think it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter. So the way they handle the sort of midpoint of the movie where it swivels towards the confusion is really cool because it shows Laurie getting a letter that Charlie, one of the guys in the beginning of the movie, Charlie was one of the Rangers. The guy with teeth and he talks like a fucking idiot, but he's got the voice of an angel when he sings. He's that kind of character.
Jesus Christ.
And then he's like, what the fucking song? Skip to my
my God.
Oh, skip to my
Where's that Apache tomahawk when I need one?
Tell me about it. If you could scalp one guy in this movie,
I'd
grab that guy by stupid buck teeth and run my beautiful weapon across the top of his head. And then I'd hoot and holler and ride away.
Hell yeah.
And they'd be like, that's cultural appropriation. I'd be like, worse, it's murder. You dummies. Murder's still worse than whatever you're cooking up. Whatever scheme you're cooking up to control me, you fucking wackadoos.
No, it's cool to murder. It's fine. But if you take someone's culture, you're a shithead.
Can you believe that Ethan hates people when they murder his entire family? What an asshole.
What a shitlord.
I don't even think they say that anymore.
No, they don't.
I think that's very 2020.
Yeah, it's been a couple of
Give
years.
me the time, Scott.
Sorry, dude. What do they say? No cap now or something?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to
I don't
noise,
either.
But
I just get the young kids that wear it.
Lou, skip to my Lou. I wish they'd burn him alive.
Not before I turn your head into a canoe.
I wish they'd strap his arms to a wagon wheel and then burn him to death with hot coals. Comanche style, son.
Here's a sandhill, you dickhead.
Your Comanche friends are real dicks. They staked my friend to a fucking anthill and cut his eyeballs out. Fucking jerks. No. But
They're total psycho.
so it's this cool it's this cool moment where incidentally Martin and Ethan are trying to find some information. They're trying to find the war chief's scar, and they realize that they've bartered themselves a wife, and boy, the treatment of this woman isn't great. This might be the most embarrassing part of the movie, the most secondhand slide down in your chair embarrassed moment of this movie. I can deal with a guy who's got like racist thinking and all this shit, but the way they treat this woman, like it's just like, oof. When he
now
when he boots her, well, it doesn't bother me too much. But when they boot her down the hill, I was like, oof.
Yeah.
That's like, she tries to lay next to him and he kicks her he shoves her, he flings her bodily down the hill.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I just watched it.
It's not good.
No, it's really
not
hard.
a good part.
Or over rocks too.
It's got to be a stunt. It looks like a stunt person because they lost a lot of weight between the time they got in the blanket and they got pushed down the hill. I think it's a stunt person, but still, the sentiment is, isn't it fun just to kick this lady downhill? I mean, but then again, it was a rough and tumble world. These guys fist fight at a wedding.
Yeah.
It's a rough and tumble place. But it was pretty shitty to boot this poor lady down the hill.
You got a wife for nothing. Like, why are you mad?
Yeah.
She looks like she'd take care of you.
She'd take care of you, all right?
Yeah. I don't know.
She's got that body. You know what she's got a body, like a real, like, functional body.
Yeah, like,
Like, I'm not, like, this is not, I'm not besmirching this woman. She's got a real, like, misery body. Like, if she needs to pick you up out of the bed or haul you around the house or break your ankles with a sledgehammer, she could easily do
with
it.
a mallet. Yeah.
Absolutely. She looks like a real, Boys are coming over. Yeah, all right, I'll huff some shingles up the ladder. You know, she's got a real sturdy, like she could, you know, you want her to butcher a cow, done deal.
You want her to carry your
she's got
firewood,
that skill set.
she's good to go.
Dude, she fucking put 10 cords of wood on the side of the house in 2 hours. Not a problem.
Yeah.
She could do it.
Yeah. She looks like a good
Functional.
wife. Why are you kicking her out of bed?
Functionally fit.
Literally, you're kicking her out of bed. What's wrong with you?
Kicking her out of bed, literally, you fuck. Oh, my God. Yeah. By the way, that buffalo they shot is a real buffalo being shot.
Is
you can
it?
Tell by the way it falls. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Not for the purpose of the movie. It was all handled by some conservation stuff where they had plans to cull some of this herd. There was some sort of sickness going through them. So they fucking shot that buffalo. When I saw that buffalo shot, I went right to Google.
That always makes me
I've seen too much
angry.
animal death. I've seen way too much animal death in my day to not go, that's really something dying for sure. The way it just drops straight down, like legs just shut off, dead. Looked like a fast death. I will say that.
At least it's peaceful, at least for that. I mean, that's like when I was watching
They don't shoot it on the movie set for the record.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
It's not like they're like, here, Duke, have a 30-30, shoot that buffalo. All right.
All right. I've shot a couple animals. I'll add this to my collection. No.
Yeah.
All right, that's not so bad then.
That's definitely a buffalo being killed for real on camera.
That kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, don't watch the fucking non-movie Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
You want to get freaked out, bro?
Seen that too.
Ooh.
And like
where they hack the back of its neck with a machete and you see a fucking yawning wound on its neck down to its bone in one shot. I was like, that is a fucking, and that thing was just down, dead. Like severed its spinal, like it's some sort of like native person to the area. He just whack. And I guess they were going to kill that bull that day anyway.
Yeah.
So they're like,
can we film it?
They used it for the movie.
Can we film it?
Fucked up. Dude. And that's really gruesome compared to this.
Yeah.
This, you're not quite sure. Probably a 300 Win Mag. Just drops it in one
high grain.
So
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Something, elk killing.
Yeah. Something to kill it instantly.
A Win Mag or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what they used, but it's fucked up. Because you're like, whoa, that. But the point of this scene is he just starts shooting buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's angry and he's pissed. It's winter. They haven't caught Scar. They don't know the fate of Debbie. He's stressed the fuck out. He's pissed. He's motivated by anger. Every buffalo I kill is one less they can eat. It's total war for this guy. It's turned the enemy's country into glass time. He is not fucking around.
Sherman marching to Atlanta, it's just just burning down the South.
He's very, very scorched earth policy at this point. And it's intense.
Calvary.
And that shit, that happened. The biggest mass murder of mammals on the planet Earth, as far as we know to date, was the culling of the Comanche buffalo, which was a tactic employed by the U.S. government to fight them.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah, because couldn't beat them soldier wise, but you could beat them by taking away their food stores.
They wanted to they could. It started to get pretty bad for the Comanche once the army rolled in. I can't remember the guy's name, some kind of colonel or some army guy. He fucked them up bad. He started because he had so many guys, giant cavalries, all these weapons. It became pretty bad. Plus, on top of the destruction of the bison, it was just like
too much for them to handle.
It was just a lot. It was pretty rough, but dark. That's some dark shit. But we do see a cavalry roll through. This is something that happened, not in this time, in the 1870s or some shit, and they slaughter a whole fucking village of Comanche.
Yep.
You see women
indiscriminately,
and
yes,
our aforementioned wife is dead. That's super fucked up.
Yeah, Look is her name.
I love it. Her name is Wild Goose Flying in. I can't remember.
Yeah, they called her Look.
Wild Goose Flying in the Night Sky.
Yeah.
She went by look.
Yeah.
You're right. But that was a mistake of communication, a language breakdown.
Which is kind of cool.
And Ethan covers her in a brief, and it's the briefest moment, but this guy was just shooting bison. He wants to kill them all. He could really give a fuck about any of them by the seeming feel of it. He doesn't like them. And then in this moment, because he got to know this woman for seconds, and maybe as a modicum of respect because it's a woman, he covers her with a blanket. That's a character moment for Ethan.
Yeah, he's growing away from his prejudices, at least a little bit.
Maybe that's an overstatement. Maybe not. Maybe you don't think so. But let's assume that he's just going, wow.
Yeah,
he walks amongst. He's seeing what was done to him.
Yes.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. Maybe that's
these army guys just rolled through and fucking slaughtered these people.
Maybe felt
killed them all.
A little bit of sadness for her, even though she was Comanche.
And that's something that Martin says. Martin's line is, why kill her? She never hurt nobody.
Yeah, but the cavalry.
That's a very
cavalry didn't make those choices. They didn't. They a lot of times came in and killed everyone.
Yeah, of course. It was they would try to take the women, like they would usually try to take them as prisoners. They weren't treated well, believe me, they weren't. But that was a thing, And yes, kids and women were caught up and killed, but a lot of times they would take them and just march them off, prisoners, as it were. But I will say this: I do like Martin's sentiment is why she never hurt nobody, and that's very important because it's almost like an innocent feeling, right? Martin's a younger guy. Martin, we got to remember, because we've talked a lot about Ethan and not about Martin enough. And I think that I want to make a distinction here between these two people, because we kind of get a grasp for what's going on with Ethan. Let's talk about Martin a little. And I think with Martin, we're seeing a much more innocent, for lack of better terms, at least for the time period, view of the world. Martin is like, yeah, I'm going to kill Comanche, right? Which for the time, if your adoptive mother, your adoptive sister, if everybody was killed by them, and then your adoptive sisters were taken, and you're a young man, you're going to be compelled to get them back. That's righteous. That's good, I think. I think I'm going to go on record and say that's a good thing, to go get her back. And if that means killing the people that took her, well, then too fucking bad. They took her, they murdered everyone you care and love for, just about. But he's not motivated. He doesn't appear to be motivated by hatred. He appears to be motivated by a more, for lack of better terms, righteous or good thing, to get her back, to prevent Ethan from killing her, right?
Yeah.
And his view of the world is he doesn't quite, he does, but he has this revelation. Why did they kill her? She never hurt anybody. Meaning what he's telling you is, my judgment for why somebody maybe could be killed is because they do have a life of hurting people. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. He's a little naive.
If Look or Wild Goose, if she was somebody who murdered and hurt people, he would be like, well, she does deserve it. She murders and hurts people. Like, that's his mentality. Yeah. He's like, she never hurt anybody. Why did they kill her? It's not about that, like you just said, Scott. Yeah. They're just indiscriminately rolling through. They're culling. They're at war. They're running total war schemes.
They're at war, absolutely.
But I like that. That's his morality. His morality is like, so contrarily, one would assume, contrary-wise. Sorry, let me use my Deadwood speak. Contrary-wise, if Al Swearingen. So contrarily, I guess you could say that he thinks that maybe if that's what you did do, then perhaps maybe you should deserve death. Again, kind of eye for an eye-ish, which is neat. Still a pretty medieval outlook, but maybe not. Maybe one we can all wrap our heads around a little. I think we probably feel closer to Martin in this than we do in Ethan. Hopefully,
yeah. You hope.
If you feel closer to Ethan, probably check yourself a little bit. if you feel close to Martin, that probably makes sense to me. Like, well, yeah, punish evil, punish bad people that hurt people, but she never hurt anybody. She didn't deserve death, regardless of the fact she's Comanche or white or otherwise. And that's cool. Maybe I spent too much time on that, but you get my point.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. I think it's a good thing to bring up because the fact of how Martin and Ethan handled the same situations differently.
Yeah,
I like
for sure.
It shows it shows the naivete. Yeah, Martin being naive because he doesn't have the history that Ethan has with the Comanche. And that will change how you feel about anything like that. He's a little more like, well, the world's, if you're good, the world will treat you good. And it's not really the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How about the cuckoo ladies? That crazy ladies.
Yeah. Were the Comanches giving out lobotomies? Like, what happened to these people?
Fucking crazy pills, I guess.
It's like, nope, none of these crazy folks.
The line, it's hard to believe they're white. That's not a great line. Got to call a spade here. That's not a great line.
No.
To which, that's not even Ethan who says that. Ethan says they're not white.
Yeah.
They ain't white.
Oof.
Which is funny because it's almost like saying it's almost like saying that identity is something that meant something different back in the day.
Yeah. It's
right.
Not about
suddenly
the
they
skin
aren't
color. It's about the way they act.
Correct. That's fucking crazy.
It's dark.
Wow.
They ain't white. Get him out of here.
If he met an American Indian that he liked, would he be like, "Well, you're white because I like you"?
No, I think it would just. I don't think it would go in their favor.
That's pretty fucked up.
Oh shit!
But again, they're looking for the bodies and they find nothing. But they finally get some information when they go to a cantina, and they meet their man Mose Harper. Love this guy. By the way, Mose is ripped. Mose has a 25-year-old's body. Did you see when they had his shirt off and he's in the rock where he's got 6-pack abs? That's what I mean. This guy hauled hay.
Yeah, you could.
You think he worked? None of these people worked in a cubicle, for the record.
No,
not a one.
No, they were field hands. They were out there working every day before they became actors.
Yeah. Maybe. Let's hope that we're right.
Right. They're nepo babies. They don't want to do a day of work at all, and we're completely wrong.
I think the Mose guy actually grew up on a ranch. Hank Warden is his name. I think he was a ranch hand before he was an actor. So you're talking hard ass work dealing with horses
really
and
hard.
shit. Yeah, out in the West, fucking crazy. But yeah. So I love this let's talk business moment. They're in this cantina. They meet the Comancheros, who trade. So this is cool. So this was a real phenomenon. A lot of these Mexican traders, 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 not traitors, and they would trade with them. So they had lines on where they were, and everything else. So this guy Emilio takes them out and gets a meeting with fucking Scar.
Yeah, I did not expect this.
What a great scene. This was awesome.
I did not expect them to meet face to face like this in a confrontational way. I like this, like a parlay.
It was really, really fucking cool. And dude, the way Ethan walks right up into his face is kind of awesome.
Yeah. I think
he's so not afraid, dude. He's so not afraid. This guy does not scare him.
That's just him. That's just John Wayne. I think that's just him being him. I don't think it's acting.
Yeah,
he just walk right up to him. Hey, what's up? Right in your face.
It's John Wayne pulling off this character.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But this doesn't go well. We learn that the war chief's children were killed. So he's taken many a white folk for killing his kids, and on this whole thing goes. The cycle. And then we see a beautiful Natalie Wood. I don't know how old she is, but She had a tragic end in her 40s, of course, the drowning.
Yeah, I remember.
And
Jesus.
yeah,
They
terrible joke. What's the only kind of wood that doesn't float?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That was the joke in the 80s. I'm sorry.
That's
Fucked
dark.
up.
We're getting all sorts of
Fucked
dark
up.
tonight.
I'm sorry.
God damn.
I'm sorry. I didn't listen. I'm just telling you what I heard. It's fucked up.
I didn't make the joke. It's okay. No.
Yeah.
But how this scene unfolds real quick is pretty cool because they're like, oh, check this out.
Yeah.
Look at all these scalps. And
The
then
scalp pull.
that's some crazy shit. And then you see the little medal,
You are
like
a menace.
the little medal he gave Deborah when she was little. And scars running around his neck, and he kind of freaks out about that, seeing that medal.
Can you imagine? Ugh. All right, we had a quick technical difficulty called a cat got stuck on my fucking shirt with her claws that need to be cut. So we're just cutting here and editing in. So, yeah, that's what happened. So Scott, we were talking about this meeting, how it goes. We made a bad Natalie Wood joke, and then we paid the karmic price for that.
We got derailed by a
stuck
cat
on my chest. Because her claws need to be cut, and she got stuck on my Carhartt fucking thermal.
Oh hell yeah!
But anyway, so what was I going to say? So yeah, this meeting, you said it goes pretty dark. Like they bring out the scalp pole, and of course Natalie Wood's holding it. Of course now they've found Debbie.
Yeah,
they have Debbie, and what the fuck?
She, she's the one holding the scalps, and come to find out, one of the scalps is his mother, Martin's mother, and so they leave unfulfilled, like they can't get her. There's no interest in doing that, so they leave. Right, they go down, and she comes running down the hill. Debbie comes running down the hill, and so she comes running down the hill. What, to tell them to leave? Right.
Yep. I think so.
To turn
because they're gonna come fucking kill you. And she also says, "These are my people. I want to stay here." Again, this is the sort of inspired by Cynthia Ann Parker stuff. Like, go away. I'm over here now.
Yeah.
I'm over here
now. Don't worry. I'm up now.
So, and then, I mean, they don't stand a chance. There's only two of them, so they have to take off right away. But before all this, probably one of the most poignant moments is when Martin stands in front of Debbie, because it appears at this moment of the movie, which I would say sort of is the end of Act 2, is Ethan putting his gun. Like, he's like, get out of the way, Ethan. She's a fucking,
she's not one of us anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that
dark.
I think that he's here to, at this point, when he realizes that she says, "These are my people" now, he's like, okay, well, there's no saving you then. I'm just gonna kill you.
Yeah. I think he had some ideas about what he may or may not do. And then I think after what he witnessed at the camp, after he saw her holding the scalp pole with the scalps of people she was close to, which are still looking great, by the way. He must condition that hair.
It's got Pantene Pro V.
a little Pantene Pro V.
Hell yeah.
Herbal essences, where that horse shit is on TV.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid. Or whatever what was the cream we were selling before?
Yeah, the dick cream.
Maybe it was that.
Dick hair cream.
Yeah, dick hair cream. I picked up dick hair cream from Fetterman's. Works good on scalps. But no, he, I think when he sees her holding the scalp pole and holding the scalps on the scalp pole and not batting an eyelash, it's probably further, quote unquote, evidence enough for Ethan to be like, I'm fucking shooting this bitch. She's lost, right?
Yeah, she's lost to us. Yep.
And he's going to. And Martin's like, absolutely not. Martin, representing the reasonable fucking human being in this case, something any of us might be like, absolutely no. Are you insane? Yeah. Right? And that's the thing, the movie's not trying to trick us into thinking John Wayne's a shiny Captain America type.
No, and
it's being like, great, man, this is dark shit you're getting into here, man. And Well, that party gets broken up when Scar rips an arrow down the hill into the Duke's arm,
Yeah, hits him.
and they have to beat fucking feet in another awesome chase scene.
Yeah, like it's slightly sped up, but it's kind of frenzied. There's people
Mhm.
falling off horses left and right behind them.
Yeah.
It's
In another situation where they get to cover, and from cover, they shoot at people with no cover outside of their horses into a spot where they can't ride their fucking horses. They can't get their horses up there, but they're charging in at them anyway, and they're just dropping them.
Yep. And
Because, yeah.
Jesus, the stunt guy. For Scar,
Yeah.
the stunt guy took a fall for him. But it's,
Yeah.
I mean, again, the tactical awareness of these two here. They back themselves into a corner like a cave, and they have some outcropping in front of them to just take pot shots on these Indians coming at them. And the Indians have zero cover, and they ended up bug out again because it's reality.
Yeah, they have to.
You wouldn't charge them. They'd all end up dead.
Yep. They try a little bit to see what's up, and then when they realize, well, they must have plenty of ammunition or whatever, they're like, fuck this, we're out of here. It's the only reason they're not dead outside of it's a script and they're the heroes is because they got to the cover first. They ran away. They fucking booked it out of there
Bolted.
because they had to. Well, you're going to get slaughtered right there on the riverbank if you don't. And this is that moment where we realize he's bequeathing everything to Martin. And Martin's like, fuck you.
Yeah, I don't want your shit.
I love this scene between these guys. I don't want your sheet. You were going to shoot her after all this, man. Fuck you. You can keep it. That's great.
It's so good. He throws it right back at him. I don't want any of your damn property.
Yep.
It just shows you that Martin is not driven by assets, and it's showing that Ethan is softening to Martin, and also maybe warming up in general.
Indeed.
At least for a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the wedding subplot?
I mean, it's
should probably give it its just course here.
It is a good big chunk of the movie. But it's just like
it's just a brief. It's kind of a brief, like, I guess you'd say it's a pretty solid.
It's like 15 minutes or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it's their last filler before they make that final push on the camp.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's what is it? Not Lucy. It's what's her name?
Laura.
Lori is gonna get married to that weirdo dude.
Laura, or is it Lori? I think it's Lori.
Lori. Did I say Laura? I think I meant Lori.
No, I said it wrong.
And where's that bucktooth guy? There's so many characters in here, and some of them are
Charlie.
Good. Charlie, yeah, Charlie.
No, that's Charlie. Yep, he's the only one with the last name that's his own, I guess. Except because Nesby and Mose, they're all like individuals, but you have a lot of family members here,
yeah,
right?
A lot of mixed together.
Nesby was the one who got wounded at the first engagement. Then you have the Jorgensen, which is Lars, Miss Jorgensen, and then of course Lori, and then dead Brad was also a Jorgensen, the one who was courting dead Lucy.
Yeah.
And then you have Charlie, and the Reverend, and that's kind of like the whole crew.
Yeah, and they're kind of, so she's kind of like, I'm gonna get married to this choochy dude. He's
this toothy motherfucker.
Yeah. He sucks.
Yep, he does kind of suck, but he was riding with them in the beginning.
Yeah,
he was fighting with them. But I think my favorite part of all of this is the politeness of the men for the brawl.
Oh, dude,
he helps him take his coat off. Very gentlemanly.
Hold
fighting.
my hat, sir, as I'm gonna beat your ass.
And the first they're like, no fighting, blah blah, no fighting, blah blah blah. And he's like, no, this is personal. And he's like, oh, all right, well, fight then.
Yeah,
that's fine.
No weapons and no kicking, no gouging, no biting.
Yeah. But dude, Christopher Pike, he was watching Kirk closely because he gives a flying kick like you've never seen, and he boots that bucktooth fucking goof. That must, dude.
Dude, he can kick pretty
kicking
high.
That guy, listen, kicking that guy in his teeth is probably as easy as hitting a barn with a tennis ball, because it's just a big ass target. You just aim for the gleaming white Tony Powers teeth.
I'm blinded by.
Just boot him in his fucking chompers.
I'm blinded by the whiteness of his teeth.
Blinded by the lights.
I love it because they
It's a
stopped
good
the fight.
brawl.
Wait, somebody lost their fiddle. Like it's just so
Yep.
it's so matter of fact.
And it's
like
not
gentlemen.
it's not proper for the ladies to watch, where they're trying to shut them out, but the ladies are like pushing through the window to watch the brawl.
Yeah, it's
Meanwhile, Ethan's like just kind of laughing, lounging, you know.
yeah. He's just like, oh fuck, he's this. Well, I mean, get it. You wrote this lady. You wrote Lori a letter telling her how much you dig her and everything like that, and you won't be back for Christmas. But
also how you got married and
yeah,
how she's younger than you and bad things he said in that letter, like an idiot.
He's not smart when it comes to the opposite
he's
sex.
He's not a great reader, not a great. You wouldn't want this guy, you know. You wouldn't want this guy penning the governor for a stay of your execution.
Yeah,
you know? You want somebody with a little more convincing.
Yeah, he's not good with the.
But no,
opposite
it's
sex.
you know, I do like that. I do kind of like the stuff with Laura and you know, it's back in the day for her to be hugging on another man when she's about to get married. That's a big deal too.
Oh yeah,
But the reality is that's her squeeze. They're meant to be.
Yeah,
sorry, Tooth Man.
She said they've been dating since they were 3 years old. So they've known each other for a long time, and she's been waiting for him forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so by I guess consolation, she's gonna marry Charlie. And then when Martin comes back in, she's like, "Nah, I don't want that guy no more. This is my true love." And that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Also, we've talked a lot about Ethan the character, but we haven't talked a ton about John Wayne. And John Wayne's done a lot of shit in this movie, but in this particular scene, I really started to be like, I get it. Like this scene in particular, every time they show him, he's just a fucking cool customer.
Yeah.
And I'm serious.
Yeah.
The way he has this, and it's funny, I'm like, do you know who I feel like took inspiration from? Like, first of all, I know that, is it Jack Burton? Is that his name? And is that Kurt Russell's name in
Big Trouble?
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's doing a John Wayne impersonation.
Well,
the whole fucking movie. Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole movie. But I got to tell you this right now. Do you know who reminds me? Do you know who I bet was a John Wayne fan? Harrison Ford.
Definitely.
Because, dude, John Wayne, the way John Wayne moves, for a big guy, you wouldn't think he kind of is light on his feet, but he slides around. He's got this kind of cool swagger to him. The way he leans, there's a casual, calm, like, I don't have it with me, Han Solo.
Yeah, right.
I'm not stressed about anything outside of when he's really angry, but like when he's like, he moves slow, he moves deliberate, he leans, he's calm, the way he crosses his feet, just a cutting image of a cool customer. It's pretty sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's in his 50s and like whatever, like maybe not conventionally attractive, but there's a calm way about him, just a smooth fucking dude.
Yeah.
He saunters. He's a sauntering guy, and he leans, and he's just that cool customer, man. I don't know. I get it. Like,
yeah,
I
understand.
I would make fun of it as a kid, but now I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Well, because we're older now, and we also realize that like that's something that's from a bygone era. You know, like
Yeah,
we
tell me about it.
don't have people like that anymore. I mean, we do have some people, but they don't exude that kind
Maybe
of.
more than you think.
I mean, like
Maybe more than you
there's a
think.
couple out there, like definitely like I think like one of them for me is like Tom Hardy, but I think like
I love that guy.
he's just got this cool collectiveness to him. No matter what he's doing, when he's sitting there just smoking a stogie with one shoulder on the beam for the house, and he's watching the what is it, the freaking churchy guy there. I'm so bad with the name.
Hour 43:34. That's why I paused it
Yeah.
here, and people can't see what we're talking about, so we just want to make sure we reference that. But yeah, there's a shot of John just leaning against one of the beams, and he's just a fucking cool looking dude. He's got his weapon belt on. It's very could be Han Solo.
It could be.
That could be Han Solo standing like that. You know?
Definitely.
And I know Han Solo's got a Western feel to him. That's the idea that Lucas loved these fucking movies.
Yeah.
You know, his idea was, I want a cool gunslinger type of guy. You know, fucking. Yeah, so
He just looks like the guy in the room that like doesn't need to flaunt that he knows what he's doing. Doesn't need to flaunt how strong he is. He's just competent,
Confidence.
capable,
and confident.
yes, and confident. Not arrogant, confident. Like I can handle
And by the
myself.
way, Greenhill, the young lieutenant, is his son in real life. That's Patrick Wayne.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got the same eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool.
No
Yep.
kidding. I was like, why is this kid in here? He can't really act. Makes sense.
No, I know, of course. Yeah. And I paused it for you at the hour 40 mark.
Dude.
But I'm telling you,
Look
man,
at
that's
that
a 20-year-old's body.
8-pack, dude.
Yeah, it looks like somebody took the old G.I. Joe head and stuck it on the young G.I. Joe body. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Dude,
Although everybody's jacked in G.I. Joe, so I don't even know what I'm
he
talking
looks
about.
like the guy from X-Files with like a 15-year-old body.
He, I don't know what guy you're talking about.
Oh, I'm trying to think his
Which
name.
guy are you talking about?
That's
But he was, you know that his last role was Twin Peaks as the super old butler guy?
really? That's the same guy?
He's like 90 years old in that. Yeah, he lived to like 92.
damn, good run.
Good run. Yeah. Look, with a body like that, dude, telling you, growing up on a ranch, didn't eat poison, didn't sit in front of poison, didn't subject himself to poison, had a nice, good, long life. Said he died of natural causes. And get this, the lucky bastard, went to sleep one day, never woke up.
Ah, the best.
God fucking bless him. God bless Hank Warden. Huh? This guy's
Dude.
a fucking... You know what? This one's for Hank. That's all I'm giving him, though, because really, John Wayne should get this one. All right, we're done with that. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
They get that last lead that the cavalry, the lieutenant's like, we're going to go fuck him up. And the Reverend guy, Texas Ranger, just takes charge. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
He's like, you're cold? Take your hat off. He's just busting his balls. It's fucking great.
And I love that every time they call up their like rangers, they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're doing this with no pay, no commission, nothing. You're not getting paid at all." I'm like, dude, that's some government shit right there.
No fucking shit.
Risk your life.
No
We're not giving you $1.
Go fuck yourself. But so this is good shit. I like that he tells him that, yeah, your mother's scalp was on that lance. Sorry to tell you. And he's like, well, I don't care. I'm still going to sneak in there and try to get her out, because if we go in guns blazing, they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
And that's the general feeling that he has. And he goes on what has to be the most insane mission ever, which is, I'm going to sneak into a Comanche camp. Are you fucking insane?
Yeah, I mean,
but he does.
He's got the, remember, he's part Native American, so he kind of blends in a little bit. You know, he tries to take off his shirt, and I think he's not wearing any
shoes. Shoes off too?
What's up?
Yeah,
I think he's got his shoes off too.
Yeah, he fucking get bit by a scorpion.
Yeah, and then he just
the heaviest sleepers in the world, by the way, are the
say,
two Comanche women in the tent with her.
Do those people pass out because they're drinking booze all night? Because like she screams at the top of her lungs for a moment,
dude,
and they don't
is
even
going
flinch.
on? Yeah, and I love that Martin kills Scar in an unceremonious way.
Just very ignominious, very just
it's great.
Matter of fact, boom, 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 and you don't even see it. You just see, because you're like at the low, like the camera's low on it, so you don't even see him get shot. You just see Martin lever the pistol.
Yeah, and you think he fans it.
Yeah,
and just pops him.
Yep, yeah, he does.
Gives him 3 shots, and
the cavalry
charges. Kind of dies off camera. That's kind of awesome. And once that happens, they start this crazy ride. Yeah, like you said, a bit sped up actually. Now that you mention it, and yeah, they this is dark business too. Just shooting people.
Oh yeah, and
then the epic fucking the epic final shit where he's running her down on the horse.
Yeah.
So he jumps off the horse. He grabs her. Now, this is Ethan chasing her. She's free at one point. So her initial thing was, I don't want to go back with you. When she saw Martin, she was like, I do want to go back with you.
Yeah.
And maybe she's been thinking about it since that first meeting when they had a parlay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what changed. So what changed? Maybe she was like, you should get out of here. They're going to try to kill you anyway. And maybe when she realizes like, oh no, now we're victorious. Now we're going to take you. You know?
Yeah, maybe
it's not quite Cynthia Ann Parker, 26 years with these people. It's 5 years. Again, takes 5 years to find her, of course, the movie. So,
yeah, no, I I like how they frame that shot too, with her running down, Deborah running down the hill with a cave in front,
Fucking
in the foreground. It's just beautiful, and and all of a sudden you just see the Duke come down the hill on the horse, and either it's
he
him
hoists her up like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah. Her 100-pound body is nothing for that man.
Yeah,
imagine how strong he was, like being
He's
that
probably
big.
pretty strong.
He carries her like she's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, I was just saying, at one point when the guys are fist fighting, at one point, there's a dude, an unnamed guy in the cast. He's just his like party goer, and he's got like grayish hair. He's got this big strapping frame. You don't see him much, but at one point he hauls either Martin or Charlie bodily through the air, like by the pants, and just whips him across the room. And when you watch that scene, you go, who is that farm strong dude who threw bales of hay, who just bodily, like old man gray hair strength, just flings that child through the fucking air? Damn. I rewound it. I showed Maj, I go, watch him haul him bodily through the air, because that's exactly what happens. It's amazing.
They were tough, man. They were strong.
But like you said, John Wayne does the same thing, except with a smaller girl, but still.
Yeah. But I mean, still, he picks her up like it's nothing. And I like that when he grabs her, it looks like he's going to hurt her. And then they kind of had lock eyes, and she hugs him.
She hugs him. I think it's his kid.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think so. I don't know if she knows that, but I think once he saw her look at him, it melted his resolve to kill her. Like, she's mine. She's mine, and she's in my arms, and she's not trying to fight me. So maybe she does deserve to live. I like that. I like the growth.
And maybe I see her face and her eyes, and I love her, and maybe I believe it's my child, and I don't want to kill her, despite what she may, whatever defiling or otherwise things happen. Regardless of any of that, I still love her.
Absolutely.
But unlike the reviewer I keep picking on, who shall remain nameless, I don't think they're saying, "Oh, he's now overcome his prejudices."
No, I don't think that at all. I don't think
he didn't kill her. That doesn't make him a fucking hero. He did a heroic thing by risking his life in battle with Comanche to bring her home. Yes, he did that while also holding kind of not great beliefs. It's almost like he's a multivariate human being.
Yeah, right.
And he takes her, and he just doesn't kill her. It doesn't mean he suddenly is going to be like, well, maybe I'll have the Comanche over for Thanksgiving. I don't think he's saying that.
Yeah,
I think he's just going, I'm not going to kill her. And to top it off, in the most epic ending of all time, the greatest moment in this movie to me is when the Jorgensens take Debbie back into the house. The camera backs into the house. We just see their silhouettes. And standing on the porch is John Wayne. He stands there, and then he steps to the right, and in walks Martin, and in walks Laura. And if you notice, after he hands her off, they don't, it's almost like in a weird way. The second he hands her off, and I think this is actually brilliant filmmaking. I've watched this 50 times. I keep rewinding it. Is after the second Ethan hands her off to Mrs. Jorgensen, it's almost as if Ethan Edwards becomes completely invisible.
Yes.
Watch it very carefully.
Yes.
It's like he becomes completely invisible. Why? Because for all intents and purposes, he may as well be invisible. Why? Because he is who he is. And when he steps aside and Martin and Laura walk past him, they don't even regard him. They don't even look at him.
Nope.
And then he grabs his arm and he kind of stands there in that sort of wounded way, turns, steps off the porch, walks out into the wilderness, and the door closes on him. With not the most subtle filmmaking saying, that world, that house of warmth and family is not yours.
Not for him.
It's not for him. And then the movie ends and I go, this movie's brilliant. It's really fucking good. And the movie starts with us coming out of the house, the shot of him coming down to the house.
Door opening.
And then we see him, the door opening, and now the door closing on him. Why? because he served his fucking purpose. He's a wandering guy. He did what he was supposed to do. Off he goes, and that's it.
That's it.
That life, to be somebody, to be somebody who maybe has overcome their sins, who maybe has changed or is going to embrace a peaceful life of being in a family man, like all these people are trying to do, is just not him. It's not who he is. He comes home from the war having lost the war. Makes a man feel a certain way. On top of it, he maybe was an outlaw. Maybe he got gold in California. Maybe he didn't. Mo seems to think so. And then he sits down and he eats with these people, and he's there. And in the second the Reverend Captain comes in and says, "We got a problem," he's like, "Give me my shit." He can't live this life.
He can't
That's
settle
not
down.
who he is.
He can't settle down.
He can't. And that's awesome, and it's sad, and it's kind of tragic, and maybe, well, he fucking deserves it because of X, Y, and Z. But no, I think it makes him a very interesting character, and that's why I think this movie's so good. And that story is told in a simple shot, just a shot of the door being closed to him is fucking brilliant, man. And I really dig it. I really love this movie. I think it's phenomenal.
I love it. I love it because it starts with him being outside of the story, and then he joins the story, and at the end of it he leaves the story and he's lonely once again, and the door shuts on him because
the wandering man,
he goes back to wandering, back to wherever he was before the story started. It's not his part to be in the house with everyone. He did his part. Now he goes back to the wandering, which I love how that ends. I loved it. I rewinded it like 5 times. There's also the way he holds his wrist, or he holds his hand.
Yes,
his arm. Yeah. It's an homage to a different film star that was in westerns as well. He used to hold his. Who? I can't remember what his name was. I'll look it up. But I mean, it was someone else that was a film star, and it was an homage to him because he would hold himself like that in the movies as well.
We should look that up. I'm gonna actually type it right now. John Wayne arm hold homage. As an homage to him, John Wayne has held his right elbow with his left hand in the closing shot of The Searchers, imitating his stance. Carey himself often used in other films.
Harry Carey.
Harry Carey?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's crazy. Because that's Harry Carey's kid is, what's his name? Right?
What?
Harry Carey's kid is the Reverend. That's Harry Carey Jr.
Oh, okay. I knew it was someone else who was in. I didn't know it was his son. That's cool.
It's got to be his son, right?
I think
I'm pretty sure the Reverend is. No. I'm thinking somebody else. Was it Brad? I think it may have been Brad.
I'm not sure.
Right? Because he's younger. It's got to be Brad. Yeah, I think it was Brad.
Yeah, Harry Carey Jr. Yeah, he's also in Tombstone. He's a sheriff in Tombstone that gets shot.
He's the fucking sheriff that confiscates their guns in Tombstone?
Yes, he is, buddy. Yes, he is.
My mind is exploding right now. That's when Creek Johnson and Texas Jack, and he's like, "I got to take your guns, boys." That's Harry Carey fucking Jr.?
Yeah, buddy.
No shit. And that's who John Wayne is homaging. He's homaging his father, Harry Carey. Yes.
Because his father was what do you call it? Was an earlier film star, a black and white film star.
Yeah. Well, yeah, John Wayne was too. John Wayne was he was in silent movies.
Yes.
Yeah, Harry Carey Jr. is Brad.
Would often use that pose in films
sick.
Before he passed away in 1947, so he was given homage to him 10 years later.
That's awesome, dude. I thought it was the arrow wound.
That was in his shoulder.
I'm like, didn't he get shot in the shoulder? And I think it was the other one.
It was the other arm. It was the left one, I think, right?
Dude, it's so funny because he looks kind of like emotional, like troubled. The way he holds his arm is probably the most unconfident thing he does the whole movie. Like he's almost hurt.
It's very downtrodden. And it's very like
it's very fitting though. Yeah. Like, God, this fucking movie rules, man. I don't know. This movie's sick.
It's a great movie. I'm so happy that you picked this one.
Dude, yeah. I read about this one and Liberty Vance and went with this one. I hear they're both phenomenal. But yeah, this movie's sick, dude. I'm so glad we talked about it.
Hell yeah.
We talked about it for way too long. We talked about a lot of shit.
Holy shit, yeah, we did.
We hope you enjoy this very long and fucking awesome episode. And that we're already over 3 hours and something. I promise you, maybe we'll have to do Maybe we'll do a comment roundup on all these movies and just have a bonus episode where we talk about people's thoughts on all these movies. But this episode's a little long in the tooth for us to now get into another 20 minutes of comments. So maybe we'll figure something out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have Maja write this down and remind me. Maybe we'll do a comment roundup. But my voice is shot. This has been fun. Again, the book I kept referencing was by S.C. Gwynn called The Empire of the Summer Moon, The Rise and Fall of the Comanche Empire. He explains why he uses the word empire, because it's not an empire per se, but yeah, so worth checking out. But this is a sick movie. I really enjoy it. It's opened my eyes to the possibilities of films of the era, and yeah, man, I'm really happy I watched it. I really enjoy it. I think it's brilliant.
It's amazing
and complicated and messy and not perfect and not. It's Captain America versus Doctor Doom. See how easy that is?
Yeah. A little more.
Doctor Doom, he's a Nazi. See how easy that is? Yay. We don't have to think about it. We can just go, duh, bad guy, good guy, duh. So I like it when I don't have to go, duh, good guy.
I like to think.
Okay. I'm going to go fucking. All right, I got to take a shower. I'm done. Love you guys very much. LSGmedia.net. Hope you enjoyed the show. I certainly did.
Hell yeah.
Don't forget, check us out, lsgmedia.net, because that's where you can become a member. Remember that whole thing I was telling you about? I failed to sell you my wares. Well, consider it. We love you very much. And with that, Scott, love you.
Love you.
Member, love you. Listener, like you a lot. Almost love you. Peace out.